Ah, what music!
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready?
The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Attaboy.
Let me drive. I will make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It isn't like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pan will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when he runs so close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this. Now, when we get you prime painted and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last.
There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
Oh, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? Come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. Sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
Yeah, you gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes, every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch.
Hello folks and welcome back to the Retro Racing Managers League. It's the 1991 Grand Prix World Championship, and after the first few races of the season, it's still very much open season. The fastest two cars in the field though do appear to be those driven by Williams and Ferrari. They certainly seem to have come into this season eyes wide open and ready for a fascinating battle. Jake Sanson here once again to give you all of the action as the championship continues to develop. It's been a very tough season in 1991 so far. The championship kicked off in earnest for the Ferrari team with their young German charge Michael Schumacher coming through to win both the United States and Brazilian Grand Prix. At San Marino, Thierry Boutsen inherited the win on the very last lap when the man who had dominated the entire race, Ayrton Senna, in his Porsche Williams, ended up having mechanical problems on the very last lap, and Alain Prost came through to win his record-breaking 6th Grand Prix in Monaco. Fantastic performance from the Frenchman and a really sensational performance from him. Apologies, the 5th Grand Prix in Monaco, I do believe. However, it's been a fabulous run up to the Monaco Grand Prix this time. We are now here at the Montreal race on the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve for the 5th race of the championship, the Canadian Grand Prix. And fresh off the back of winning the Indy 500 as a complete wildcard entry, Ayrton Senna is buoyed and ready for an exciting battle. However, it's pre-qualifying first as always, so we're going to go straight into the action. And it's an all-Honda front row with a Goody Suzuki in front of Ukyo Katayama, but they set the same time to the 1,000th of a second. Chiva and Guerra are on the second row from Fabrizio Babazza and Christian Fittipaldi, the Jordan and the Modena. Then we have Andrea De Cesaris and Damon Hill. On the 5th row of the grid, it's Carl Wendlinger alongside Johnny Herbert in the second of the Dallaras. Roberto Moreno is there alongside Paul Tracy, continuing his great battle. Tommy Byrne doing a good job in qualifying alongside Alan McNish, and Rickard Rydell lining up alongside Joachim Winkelhock in the Zach Speed. Then it's Eric Comas alongside Nicola Larini, who is back in action again in the Reynard. Emanuele Pirro, his teammate, alongside Roland Ratzenberger in the Fon Metal. His teammate Martin Donnelly is next up alongside the Minardi of Pierluigi Martini. Then JJ Leto alongside Ivan Capelli. And on the back row of the grid, it is the two AGS cars of Lauren Aiello and Hideki Noda. So the contenders are gearing themselves up, ready for the start. Honda's on the front row of the grid. They have managed to make it to the Grand Prix every single time so far this year in the first 4 races of the season. You can see there the brand new colour scheme of the Eurobruns there on the second row. Let's go racing here in Canada. Good start from Suzuki. Babazza's made an absolute flyer in the Jordan, working his way forward already, trying to get through to the top 4, but the 2 Eurobruns are there, and it's a good start too from Fittipaldi. Christian Fittipaldi's worked his way forward. The rest of the field just trying to pick their way through the first couple of corners on the course. And everybody just about through in relatively good stead. And there is the Fondatal towards the back. There's Ukyo Katayama doing his thing as he works his way through the field. Out in front of his teammate of Goody Suzuki, the 2 Hondas already trying to stretch away, with Eddie Chiva running in 3rd position, doing a fair job. Here's Christian Fittipaldi making his bid on the inside line in the Modena Lamborghini, trying to dive through. He's not been able to make it on that occasion, and he's had to come off the throttle as a result. It's going to give Babazza a little bit of an opportunity. And as a result, the top 3 are now stretching well clear. There's De Cesaris. He's going to make his first bid. No, it's going to be Hill who makes his first bid, and the Dallara gets through and makes up a place. So good work on the Coloni. Damon Hill in the Dallara comes up into P7 on this opening lap of the race. 35 laps in total on this Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. They work their way through the chicane, right, left, and here's Babazza trying to defend the position as he holds on in front of Christian Fittipaldi just that little bit longer. Fittipaldi, who is still in for Eric Bernard, who has been out of the car for a while. Ukyo Katayama and the Goody Suzuki still just putting away the end of the first lap here in Montreal. It's a good start. Now remember, the top 3 teams across the line are the ones that get through to the Grand Prix itself, join the other 10 teams, the top 10 teams from last season in 1990, and obviously we can have a great run. Lauren Aiello is the only one to have problems on the first lap. Looks like he picked up some damage, so he has come into the pits. Otherwise, everybody has kept it very safe and sound on the opening lap of the race. And here's Babazza in the Jordan Ferrari, trying again on the inside, nice and easy this time as he gets through on Roberto Guerrero. So the Jordan team looking very strong here in Canada. I'll tell you who else is looking strong. Zach Speed look pretty sharp here. Roland Winkelhock just on the outskirts of the top 10, but they look like they've got a good opportunity to go through to the Canadian Grand Prix later on. Race of attrition here always, and one of the biggest problems on the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is usually brakes. They get quite hot, because obviously you're running from long, fast straights into heavy braking zones on several points on the course.
come and be up prime here as Johnny Herbert is to think about his teammate Damon Hill. Had got as high as 7th and is now back down to 9th position again. Looks like the Cesaris and Carl Wendlinger in the second of the Jordans. Seems to have made up a bit of pace. Look at Barbatza. Barbatza doing a great job in this race. It seems as though there's been a bit of a shift in dynamics at the Jordan team of late. It was Carl Wendlinger that was leading Barbatza all the way. Now it's the other way round as the Italian has definitely come up trumps with regards to the Austrian. So as they work their way through the chicane and onto the back straight. Oh, there's a car in trouble up in front. Now there aren't that many cars. I think it's us. I think we're on board with the man in trouble. Ukyo Katayama. There seems to be smoke billowing from the Honda on the 3rd lap. That is big drama already. So I do believe we are losing the race leader as Johnny Herbert continues on his way. And there is that. Yeah, there's the proof. Katayama in front of Eddie Cheever. He's on fire. Big disaster for the Honda. And there's Ratzenberger in trouble as well. So Ratzenberger is also out of the race. Big disaster for the Austrian. Didn't really get to see what he could do. So 2 cars on the same lap. But Katayama is dropping out of the race. There he is at the final chicane. So Ukyo Katayama is going no further. The race leader as well as Roland Ratzenberger. Both cars are gone. So that is already a big hammer blow to Honda's chances of getting through to the Grand Prix. With 1 car already out. Roland Ratzenberger out of the race as well. There are the 2 Monteverdis. Still dueling away. A lot of rumours circulating that team as to how much further they are going to go in the world of Grand Prix racing. Vioxx Monteverde team. Cesaris having a big lock-up, getting stuck there behind the Colombian Roberto Guerrero. Driving a Colombia car, which is the Ford Works team from next year. Obviously currently known as Eurobrun, but the Brun Racing team are working very hard on their Group C car as well as other projects. There's a lot of suggestions that they might not be running a Grand Prix team next year. They're just going to sell the team up to Ford in their entirety and get out of the game while the game's good. So Donnelly currently holding on in front of Moreno and Nish. They're having a great little tussle. So already 2 big names from the race gone. Katayama and Ratzenberger, 2 of the most talented drivers in this field. Unfortunately, both men already out. After that, we've got Winkelhock and Byrne. Now just on the outskirts of the top 10. Winkelhock's made some good places. Tommy Byrne has dropped to 12th position. He ran as high as 11th, but Winkelhock has actually worked his way forward into 11th place. There's Alan McNish in the Real, trying to work his way further forward if he can. But obviously there's a lot of tough battles to come. There is Akuna Suzuki, working his way further forward. So the battle's obviously working very intriguingly indeed at the moment. There's still the race's battle on. The drivers are giving us every trick they've got out there on the course as we watch the Jordan of Fabrizio Barbatza at this point in the proceedings. And there is Johnny Herbert popping up to try and make his presence felt in the Converse Dallara. So Johnny Herbert trying to work his way forward, having already pulled off some decent overtakes. It's going to be an interesting one for Johnny as he continues to march his way around the course. So there is Eddie Cheever, looking very strong in the Eurobrun Ford at the moment. Roberto Moreno dueling away as up the inside there goes Alan McNish to take the place away from him. That is 14th for the young Scotsman. There is Eddie Cheever in the Eurobrun Ford, still doing a fairly decent job as we watch Wendlinger dueling away with Damon Hill. There's not going to be any easy overtakes on Wendlinger today. Clearly the Austrian looking very good indeed as he runs further forward. Now we look to the man who is back towards the front once again. There is Akuna Suzuki in the Honda, continuing on in fine style. Very disappointing absence with his teammate now, Ukyo Katayama, the man who was leading the race, of course, having that engine failure on the 3rd lap. And how far is the other Honda going to go? That's the real question, because if one is in trouble, well, they're obviously going to be worried about the other one as well. Fabrizio Barbatza in the Jordan, running in 3rd position behind Eddie Cheever. So the 3 teams that are likely to go through at the moment are Honda, Eurobrun and Jordan. With the Lamborghinis not far behind. There's Paul Tracy on home soil, making his way past Damon Hill now. I wonder if Damon Hill is on the heavy fuel strategy. Suddenly tumbling down the order. Now, of course, they can choose whether to go on a full tank of fuel and not stop, or they can go on a light tank of fuel and stop once. And that's a big lunge up the inside from one of the Colonies. That is Moreno getting through on the inside of Alan McNish, who we were riding on board with. Alan McNish in the Real, still going very well indeed, as he continues to put pressure on the drivers around him. But certainly Eddie Cheever having a great run in second place. McNish tries again. Hasn't been able to get the way through on the inside line there. There's still a bit of work to do. But it will be an interesting one as Roberto Moreno now tries to dive in up the inside of the Zach Speed in front of him. And there's Rickard Rydell, the Swedish talent, in the second of the Reals. His car's still looking reasonably competitive. They're a bit more reliable than they are fast, but that does give them a chance to end up in the top 10 over the course of the end of the race. You never know what's going to happen once the other drivers start dropping out of the race. We've already had 2 big names go, as we've mentioned before. You never quite know how this race is going to shape up. But there is, I was going to say Suzuki, but here's McNish making his bid on the inside to get past Roberto Moreno, and he's made it through, although it wasn't easy. Oh, Johnny Herbert locking up big time into the hairpin. That's really going to cost his car dear. He's been travelling on 4 50-pence pieces before too long. He's got to be really careful about locking up into the hairpin. Otherwise that car really is going to cause him all sorts of headaches before the end of this race is out. Driver still putting on a good job, and that's Suzuki! Suzuki, the race leader! Both Hondas are gone now! Both Hondas are gone! Well, for the first time this year then, the Hondas are not going to make it through to the Grand Prix. So, open season for everybody else, and for Honda, that is absolutely disastrous. Both cars are out before we even reach half distance in pre-qualifying, so Honda will not make the Canadian Grand Prix, and that's the first race of 1991 that the Hondas will not be taking part in. So that is big drama, a big shock as far as the play for the race battle is concerned. So, already very controversial. The Canadian Grand Prix has already had its scalps in pre-qualifying. Neither of the Hondas will be on the starting grid for the Canadian Grand Prix. And there's the move from Winkelhock as he gets the move back on Damon Hill in the Dallara. So it's definitely opened things up for this man, Eddie Cheever, to take full advantage of the situation. Ivan Capelli still dueling away with the Reynard, and he dives through on the inside of Nicola Larini. So, an excellent performance then. Looked like it might have been suspension failure for Goody Suzuki rather than an engine failure, but certainly proof that, you know, if the Hondas are going to potentially fail, then literally anyone could. So, a very interesting situation now. But Eddie Cheever hoping to control the pace out front in the Eurobrun. Just keeping it nice and tidy for the moment as he works his way through the S's and up towards the chicane. Nicola Larini in the Reynard, still there or thereabouts, having a bit of a difficult time of it because he missed the Monaco Grand Prix. He unfortunately had to miss the Monaco Grand Prix due to a slight technical issue. Hideki Noda. Oh, and that's Wendlinger! That is Wendlinger! So that's one of the Jordans gone, and that's devastatingly bad luck for Carl Wendlinger. Really having a difficult time of it these last 2 or 3 races is Carl Wendlinger in the Zepter Jordan Ferrari. So I'm afraid he's not going any further now. He's got to hope that his teammate Fabrizio Barbazza goes the distance. And the team that's looking to join Eurobrun and Jordan into the Grand Prix is actually the Lamborghini team at the moment. There goes Comas in the Minardi, making his way now past Roberto Moreno in the Coloni. Those cars on a heavy fuel mode are definitely finding it a bit tricky now. Hill is currently in 9th place, Donnelly in P10, working his way forward through the field. And there's the big lunge up the inside of Larini, who I think is also on the heavy fuel strategy. He's only got an AGS behind him by the look of it. There's Barbazza in the sole remaining Jordan. The other car that's trying to get himself into the Grand Prix up there in the top 4 is the Coloni of Andrea De Cesaris. So there might be an opportunity for Dallara to get through here as well, with Johnny Herbert in the top 6. But what is the right strategy? Is it the one stop or is it the no stop? Very interesting to tell, because obviously there's a lot of overtaking opportunities on this circuit for a car that's lighter than the non-stoppers. But certainly an interesting scenario at the moment. There is Christian Fittipaldi, who's continuing on his way in the Lamborghini, obviously having replaced Eric Bernard of late. Be potential for Eric Bernard to return. Apparently he's going to come back after the Canadian Grand Prix. There are suggestions that he'll be back in the car in Mexico, having missed the last 3 races. Cheever out in front. Here's Martini now making his bid to get up the inside. It's going to be enough of an overtaking opportunity for Pierluigi Martini. Looks like he has made the move to get into 16th position, now chasing after Emanuele Pirro, his countryman, in the Reynard up the road. It's certainly looking good for the Minardi team to get a top 10 finish this time. Where things are currently looking. There is Christian Fittipaldi still plugging away in the Lamborghini. Look at Lauren Aiello, and I think he's going to join the retirements list. Indeed he is. The Duracell AGS Judd goes no further once again. Another very difficult race for the AGS team. Lauren Aiello is not going to make it to the checkered flag. They're really struggling with this car, aren't they? They can't get it off the back row of the grid too often, and now they can't make it to the end of a race either. So big difficulties there. Now here is Eddie Cheever in the Europe-run Ford. So this is going to continue. Rickard Rydell is now going to take on Tommy Byrne, making his dive up the inside line. Very interesting run as they continue. Still they make the progress. There's Eddie Cheever. Through the chicane comes our race leader. He is looking very good indeed to control the pace of the Ford Europe-run team's prospects at the moment. So Eddie Cheever, the American, who has plenty of experience in Grand Prix racing, is continuing to control the pace up at the sharp end of the dais here. As we now look at Alan McNish. He's worked his way forward to 11th. Is he about to stop? Looks like he is. Oh, they are dropping quite frequently now, unfortunately, and there is Alan McNish in the Real retiring from the race. And that's another DNF in this one, as Martin Donnelly locks up through the first couple of corners. But 10th position so far for the Fonmetal. Looks like a suspension failure for Alan McNish, unfortunately, that has dropped him out of this race. And more difficulties as the field continues on its way here. Cheever, Marbazza and Fittipaldi is the order. If it stays like this, then the three teams that will go through to the Grand Prix after pre-qualifying are going to be the Europe-run Ford, Jordan Ferrari and the Modena Lamborghini. So, very interesting run so far. A lot of retirements, a lot of difficulties, a lot of problems. But the contenders are still giving us a very good race of it. With the S's once again. On the run to the breakings over the hairpin. Now Eddie Cheever has currently got 1.9 seconds only on Fabrizio Marbazza, so that could still change hands through the pit stops. Be very careful about that kind of thing, as Christian Fittipaldi is trying to stay with Fabrizio Marbazza. There's only about 2 seconds between Cheever and Marbazza, and another 2 seconds between Fittipaldi and Marbazza, and only another 2 seconds between Fittipaldi and De Cesaris. So it's actually still very open between the four teams that are battling for the victory in this one. We're on that 13 out of 35. On this particular circuit, it all looks pretty close, but the Canadian Grand Prix circuit always seems to produce a bit of a surprise. We've already had one in the fact that neither of the Hondas are going to make it through to the Grand Prix. Both of them out of the race for a change. So we're definitely going to see something new. And there's Christian Fittipaldi locking up. Oh, that was tight. Christian Fittipaldi just about getting away with that one. Was a little bit scary from his point of view, I'm sure, but he's obviously had to be very careful about how he goes about things. But once the Hondas are not going to be starting the Grand Prix, so it definitely opens things up for their opponents. Here's Cheever going into lap number 14, which is not quite the halfway point for this race, but it's certainly not far off it. Only 35 laps for this qualifying race. And obviously only the first 3 teams across the line are the ones that progress through to the Grand Prix. And even if the second driver retires, there's still a chance of an entry. It's the team that progresses, not just the driver. So Marbazza, second position, still trying to stay in touch. It does look as though Johnny Herbert has managed to get the move on Roberto Guerrero, so now we've got 5 teams in the hunt for the victory. We look at Joachim Winkelhoff. Good run so far from the Zaxpeed driver, keeping himself in the hunt here with the Nickelodeon Zaxpeed BMW squad, in the hope that they can actually come through one of these days and come up with a decent result. Joachim Winkelhoff, or Smoking Joe, as everybody refers to him in the paddock, is still a very popular character in motor racing, and there's an opportunity here for him. Back straight, Eddie Cheever. Still You're just keeping that gap about 2 seconds or so between himself and Barbazza. You don't need that much more than that. But obviously you need to keep that gap favourable in the pit stops, and that's where things could get interesting, because it does look to me as though both Cheever and Barbazza are going to come in for pit stops. And I think on a circuit like Montreal, where there's a little bit more opportunity to get up to speed and make an overtake or two, I think here the non-stop strategy is not actually going to be preferable. We've seen it a couple of times so far this season when staying out can actually benefit you. But on this particular occasion, I don't think it's going to work out for them. So Fittipaldi currently running in third position. This is his best run so far in 1991. Not that he's going to be in this Lamborghini for long, or at least that's what we believe. But there is definitely going to be some chopping and changing as the season progresses. And the games of musical chairs haven't really been played too effectively so far in 1991. Been a couple of changes here and there. Battles raging on. Certainly since last time out, there's a couple of changes to the driving lineups. Adrian Fernandez is no longer racing for the Arrows team. We'll pick that story up a little bit later on. So Christian Fittipaldi in the Lamborghini, running in the top three. He didn't start the season with the team, but he's certainly been drafted in to help improve the team's fortunes, and it wouldn't at all surprise me if the Lamborghini team consider keeping him on for a bit. De Cesaris is the first big name of the pit stoppers. So here we go, lap 16. He has made his way into the pit lane. We'll have to keep an eye on that pit stop rotation, and we'll also need to figure out where De Cesaris gets out in relation to the non-stoppers. He seems to have got out behind Hill, Donnelly and Rydell. Filter out in relation to Tommy Byrne. I think Byrne will get him. Gomez might get De Cesaris as well, and indeed he has. So De Cesaris actually rejoins just behind Eric Comas and Minardi, so that means you're going to lose, I would guesstimate, about 26 seconds in the pit stops roughly. So if you are Eddie Cheever, keep pushing, because you might just be able to get out in front of Damon Hill, and that will keep his chances of winning this one very much alive. Just got to keep stretching out that gap to Damon Hill. If you can get out ahead of Damon Hill, then it's proof really that the two-stop strategy or the one-stop strategy, I should say, sorry, on the whole, is the one that works, as Rydell has stormed past Donnelly. Has Donnelly got a problem in the second of the Fon Matals? As Donnelly is suddenly looking a little bit slow there. There are the two Viral Monteverdis having their own little battle as Johnny Herbert now pits in. So, an interesting run so far. The competitors are still going strong as Winkelhock now comes into the pits as well, so that takes the pressure off Cheever. At the end of the race, he doesn't have to worry about ending up getting stuck behind him. Rydell comes into the pits as well. And looks as though Herbert's coming to the pits too. Oh, a bit of a challenge between the Viral Monteverdi drivers. Capelli and Leto having a bit of an inter-team squabble. Really not able to match the sort of the pace of the drivers up front. They are 12th and 13th now, Capelli and Leto. And there is Christian Fittipaldi currently running in third place. Now, the leading driver that has not made a pit stop, or is not going to make a pit stop, is Damon Hill in the Dallara, who is currently in 6th position. Here's Tommy Byrne, having an interesting race so far. Is that car slowing? Is Tommy Byrne in trouble? Oh no! Tommy Byrne was having a great race up to this point. He was looking really, really strong. The car is looking quite slow now. Nish out, Aiello out, Wendlinger out, both the Hondas out, and also Roland Ratzenberger out. So big disappointment, but it looks to me as though Tommy Byrne may be losing time a little bit more than perhaps he should be. Paul Tracy, the Canadian, comes into the pits on home turf. Tracy hoping to go through to the Grand Prix on home soil with his teammate Christian Fittipaldi. Go down the straight they come, and here's Pirro trying to get his move now on Tommy Byrne. Byrne doesn't have a problem, maybe he's just trying to keep those tyres going to the end of the race, because he might be one of the drivers who's not pitting. So you're not planning to pit anyway. He wants to go as far into the race as he can. Looking good to retake the lead when he pits. I'm not so sure about Barbazza keeping second place though over Damon Hill. I think it's fair that Fittipaldi will probably maintain third over for on-track position. There's Pirro, now getting his bid on Tommy Byrne. So the Reynard gets through, nicely handled. Now again, this is all going to come down to who's looked after their tyres better over the course of the 35 laps amongst the drivers who have not pitted. And there is Barbazza and Fittipaldi coming in. So both of them coming together, and there's the move from Johnny Herbert, diving in. So Johnny Herbert gets up into 8th position, passing Tommy Byrne. And as a result of the pit stops for Fittipaldi and Barbazza, now it's this man, Roberto Guerrero, who moves up into 2nd position, the Colombian. Now a Ford Eurobrun 1-2, but I would guess that Guerrero needs to pit in, and of course Chiva does. So both drivers, I think, are going to be in the pits fairly soon indeed. It's not going to be so easy to read who is going to get the best of this now. But there is Chiva, a full 18 seconds ahead of his teammate. There's Tracy, who is currently now stuck behind the Brazilian Roberto Moreno in his Coloni. So he's still there having a good race of it. I think one has pitted and the other hasn't. I think Tracy has made a pit stop. Moreno has not. Moreno's trying to get a full distance without one. And that's obviously going to put a lot of strain on the brakes. It's going to put a lot of strain on the wheels as well. And here's Johnny Herbert making his bid to get back past Emanuele Pirro. Good run from Johnny Herbert. Now Damon Hill is up to 3rd in the Dallara. But can they hold on to the top 3? That's the thing, because you've got Fittipaldi, who's just made his pit stop, and Barbazza, who's just made his. Now that's interesting. Barbazza has actually got out of the pits behind Fittipaldi. So this is great news for Lamborghini, not so good for Jordan. Because now they've got to catch and pass Damon Hill. It does look mighty good at the moment for the Eurobrun team, doesn't it? Here's Hideki Noda about to lose ground to the Real of Rickard Rydell. And the Japanese driver, Hideki Noda, gets out of the way and lets Rickard Rydell get through. There's only one Real and one AGS still left in the race. A very high attrition rate so far in the Canadian Grand Prix of 1991. 6 cars at least have all fallen by the wayside. But Damon Hill is keeping the Dallara ploughing on, not making a trip to the pits. He's not going to through the course of this race either. So Noda is in pit road, all looking nice and strong at the moment. But Chiva continuing on his way, 18.7 seconds clear now of Roberto Guerrero. Damon Hill, 3rd position, but he's being absolutely monstered by Christian Fittipaldi behind him. Fittipaldi is eating up the road, and the race leader, Eddie Chiva, has come into the pits. So Chiva is in pit lane, but this is really important for Damon Hill to try and sustain, because in 3rd position, he obviously wants to keep the position as long as humanly possible, but he is being caught by Fittipaldi, as there goes Guerrero through into the lead. But he's probably not going to be keeping that race lead for a while. It won't be too long until his teammate comes in as well. Now Tommy Byrne trying to shake off the hometown hero, Paul Tracy. Still giving it everything he's got, hoping for a move into the chicane. What a terrible time to cut away. Eddie Chiva comes back out onto the circuit, 4.6 seconds clear in 2nd place. Well, that pretty much sorts that one out. And now here's Tracy making the bid again. Tell you what, the Canadian director doesn't want to see one of his own drivers make overtakes. Tracy get through, I'm afraid he did, and we missed it. Very unfortunate for the timing, but Tracy has got through, and now here is Barbazza making his bid on Damon Hill, because Fittipaldi has already got by. And now it's going to be plain sailing for Barbazza, no hesitation whatsoever, and the Jordan driver gets through. Oh, he's gone off! Chiva's in trouble! And Barbazza's come on the circuit right in front of the path of it! Barbazza has spun! Barbazza is absolutely denied. Chiva is out. That's the 3rd race leader to retire from this race. But Barbazza got caught out in all of it. Goodness me. So now that's Hideki Noda retiring from the race as well. So both the AGSs are out. But now Barbazza has been, as far as I can tell, cruelly robbed of a decent top 3 finish there. Barbazza is going to drop right down the order. And that is disastrous for Fabrizio Barbazza and the Jordan team. Any chance they might have had of getting through to the Grand Prix is now well and truly compromised. So it looks like the Jordan team won't make it, and nor will the Hondas. That's 2 of the biggest teams in this pre-qualifying run. Fabrizio Barbazza must be absolutely livid to get caught up in the incident. And now the Italian is trying to recover and get back on the circuit. He's got to wait for the traffic to go by. He has now been lapped by Roberto Guerrero. Just a few short laps ago, he was ahead of him. What a disaster for Fabrizio Barbazza and the Jordan team. They will not be getting through to the Grand Prix in Canada. So, 12.9 seconds is now the gap between Guerrero and Fittipaldi in second place. Looks like Dallara might be getting through at this rate with Damon Hill, unless the Coloni team and Andrea De Cesaris can close up on Damon Hill. And of course, Andrea De Cesaris was one of the first to pit. He's got fresher tyres than Damon Hill in the Dallara. So this is going to be a really interesting situation for all of the competitors. And a very tough battle continuing on its way. Alberto Guerrero in the Eurobron Ford leads the race at this point. And don't forget, of course, that the top 3 drivers across the finish line, the top 3 teams, I should say, across the finish line, are going to be the 3 teams that will get through to the Grand Prix to meet the likes of McLaren, Ferrari, Benetton, and, of course, the Williams team. The last Grand Prix was the Monaco Grand Prix. That was won by Brabham and the Frenchman Alain Prost, the 3-time world champion. Unfortunately, our replay machine does not appear to be working, which is very unfortunate. Apologies that the replay machine is not in operation here in Canada. Looks like that particular computer was basically left on the bus somewhere. But yeah, the conjecture that's coming in is that Cheever spun off the road and Barbazza essentially had nowhere to go. He had to avoid him and spun off the road trying to get out of the way. So Cheever having a problem. And so now Damon Hill is in real jeopardy here. 3rd position. Look, that's De Cesaris in the Coloni. Getting bigger and bigger in the background. Emanuele Pirro now making his bid to get up alongside Martini in the Minardi. And so Pirro gets through. Nice bit of overtaking. Emanuele Pirro in the Reynard has been able to work his way further forward. There's a lot of discussion around this particular team. The Reynard team apparently is currently in negotiations with the Renault Works team. So Renault are looking to come back into Grand Prix racing for 1992 as a factory entrant. That would be the first time they have run their own team since 1985. And now wheel to wheel, the Vaillant Monteverdis dueling away. Very tricky, very tricky. Of course, there would not be any favouritism made to Renault. They would have to go through pre-qualifying same as everybody else unless the Reynard team could get into the top 10 of the Constructors' Championship. And De Cesaris making a big mistake as he tries to overtake Damon Hill, but he has got him, and that's all that counts. So he has managed to make it through. So De Cesaris in the Coloni has got through past Damon Hill, and that puts him into 3rd position, and that knocks Reynard out of the Grand Prix. So unless something occurs to one of the 2 teams up in front, Dallara are not going to get through. So very tricky situation as the competitors continue on their way. There is the battle as they continue to go racing. Guerrero, Fittipaldi, De Cesaris, Hill and Herbert, the 2 Dallaras in the top 5. Then Paul Tracy running in P6 ahead of Tommy Byrne, Alberto Moreno, Joaquin Victor, and Rickard Rydell in the Real. There is De Cesaris. Welcome one and all to those who are watching along on the Retro Racing Managers League presented by Downforce Radio. If it's fast, we're first. Here they come. Onto the far side of the circuit goes our race leader. We're watching the man in 3rd position. This is Andrea De Cesaris having a very solid run in 3rd position. But this man up in front, Roberto Guerrero, is taking the races in his stride at the moment as we now switch to the Minardi of Eric Comas, who is trying to catch up to Nicola Larini in the Reynard. Bit of a tricky season so far for Minardi. They've had flashes of brilliance, but it hasn't really turned into a full result yet from their point of view. They're kind of hoping for that as the time continues. There is Christian Fittipaldi though, 2nd position in the Lamborghini. Looking really good for the Lamborghini team actually, if they can just hold this to the flag. And they are going to get into the Grand Prix. And Johnny Herbert having all sorts of problems in the Dallara. Oh, that was a big mistake from Johnny Herbert. He just overshot, by the look of it, into the opening couple of corners. And now Paul Tracy, the Canadian, is going to get through. So too is Tommy Byrne. And I would think probably Moreno and Winkelhock are going to get through as well. Indeed, they all do. Rickard Rydell will get through as well now. If you're Johnny Herbert, you've really got to be quite patient now. Is he got gear selection issues, trying to get going again? Well, that's going to cause all sorts of problems for Johnny Herbert. The Dallara driver does get going again, right in the path of Emanuele Pirro. So Johnny Herbert, how to lose friends and irritate people behind the wheel of a Dallara. 14th position behind Emanuele Pirro. So through they come, up and over the top of the crest, and flying down the back straight. Comes Andrea De Cesaris. A solid run for him in 3rd position this time. There's Pirro once again, and he's about to lose ground to Johnny Herbert, who will get him back again. Johnny Herbert clearly fast, but that wasn't really the kind of mistake he could have afforded to make. Roberto Guerrero working his way forward. There is Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi. He's going to dive up the inside of Pirro as well. Martini gets through. With 14th place in the Minardi. Much better here in Canada for the Minardi team. They're not quite in a position to qualify for Grand Prix yet, but they are there or thereabouts. Roberto Guerrero. A tricky one as he locks up the car there. Nicola Larini trying again. Shaking off the attentions of Eric Comas. Reynard versus Minardi. Eric Comas looking quite hungry behind him now as they continue on their way forward. And there is Andrea De Cesaris in the Coloni Honda. This is the highest remaining Honda engine in the race. Obviously the 2 works cars of Ukyo Katayama and Aguri Suzuki dropped out of the race quite a long time ago when they were running in 1st position. And I'm fairly sure that, talking about Minardi, I'm fairly sure they're the only team in the entire sport so far this year to have a 100% finishing record. They've got the most reliable car in the race as Comas gets his way into 10th position past Larini. Now that I've said that, of course, that will put the jinx on them, won't it? That's Murphy's Law as far as motor racing is concerned. Guerrero having a sturdy race up in front, really consolidating his efforts here as he continues to make good work. Well, apparently there is another team that has managed to finish every single race this year. I don't think Minardi is the only one. Either that or Minardi haven't quite managed to finish every race so far this year. I think Ferrari has had a retirement or two, but I'm sure that there's going to be nerdy boffins. So there's no... Either Minardi have retired from at least one race this year, or there is another team out there that has managed to bring the car home every single time, but it's one or the other, isn't it? Back on the power, Roberto Guerrero trying to stay with him is Christian Fittipaldi. He's only 3.8 seconds behind the Eurobrun as we go into lap 29 out of 35. We're running short of laps here in the pre-qualifying race. The Grand Prix itself is set to come. Contenders still give us plenty of great racing out there on the course. Christian Fittipaldi in position, 2.9 seconds back. Cesaris, Hill, Tracy. That is the top 5 at the moment, and onto the back straight they come once again. So still they continue to battle away. Now you can see that Fittipaldi is catching Guerrero. The gap has come down to 2.6 seconds. So let's see how it all continued. Guerrero and Fittipaldi, 2.6 seconds. It's now down to 2.4. So Christian Fittipaldi is still chipping away. Let's see how it all continues on the back straight, because that Lamborghini is getting ever closer to the Eurobrun as we watch Andrea De Cesaris in the Coloni, hoping that that team is going to make it through. The whole crew waiting with bated breath as Moreno is about to be passed here by Winkelhock. So Winkelhock in the Zaxby gets through into 7th place behind his teammate Tommy Byrne. So this is going to be an interesting comeback as Johnny Herbert is making a bit of a comeback now as he passes his fellow Rat Pack member. Gets past Martin Donnelly. Martin Donnelly having continued his great flight as he works his way up the ladder. So Roberto Guerrero still going strong here as he runs forward. Fittipaldi is 2.1 seconds back now. So Christian Fittipaldi is trying his best to give Roberto Guerrero and the Eurobron team a bit of a hard time here. It's usually been Eddie Cheever who's been the hero of the hour at Eurobron so far this year, but Roberto Guerrero, the man who has brought a bit of money to the team through his main sponsor, Café de Colombia, and obviously the powers that be decided they were going to change the livery as De Cesaris locks up again. So there is the lock-up from De Cesaris in the hairpin. He's got to be careful, he doesn't do that too often. Damon Hill is still there in fourth position, waiting to take the qualifying slot away from him. As Fittipaldi closes on Guerrero again, the gap down to 2 seconds now, as here's Pirro making his bid on the inside of his teammate Nicola Larini. So Pirro clearly deciding that he's going to be the one who runs through. But still the battles rage as we get to the closing stages of this pre-qualifying bout. This is going to be an interesting one. Through the S's and down the back straight. But this is just the qualifying race, folks. The race after this one is the Grand Prix itself, and the top 3 teams across the finish line in this race are going to be the teams that make it through to the Canadian Grand Prix of 1991. Obviously, all of the teams want to get there, but unfortunately, only 3 can. It's the first 3 teams across the line. If it stays like this, it'll be the Ford Eurobron, the Lamborghini, and the Coloni that all get through to the Canadian Grand Prix. Not a Honda in sight. That's the first time all season that's happened, as both Aguri Suzuki and Ukyo Katayama retired from the lead, I should point out. Eddie Cheever retired from the net lead in his Ford Eurobron. And still the battles continue. Roberto Guerrero having a very solid race of it. 4 laps from home. But the gap has come down again to Christian Fittipaldi in second place, who is catching big time, 1.7 seconds. He really is challenging Roberto Guerrero. This could be a nail-biting finish, as Christian Fittipaldi, the replacement more than the Lamborghini. Eric Bernard, of course, out of the car. But Fittipaldi senses an opportunity. There could be a chance here to move up as Paul Tracy comes into the pits. So that's a very disappointing end as far as he is concerned. So, an interesting situation. Let's have a look and see how it all continues. Certainly Guerrero, 1.4 seconds now is the gap. Christian Fittipaldi certainly working to close up. Here's De Cesaris and the Coloni. Still trying to hold on to that third position. Very interesting situation, still progressing. As the battles continue. It's not going to be easy to see how this one all plays out. So let's see how it all continues. Situation now, a great battle. So we're going to have to see a really intriguing situation. Race still battling out, but can Fittipaldi turn the tables on Roberto Guerrero? The gap down to 1.4. Brazilian putting the Colombian under big pressure here in Canada, and here's Paul Tracy on the comeback charge. Paul Tracy trying to make his bid up the inside and gets through on Pirro. Now it looks as though there's a problem for somebody further back. I think Larini is getting past Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi. And Martini has dropped back. Now I want to know to see what has happened with the Minardi. I think there might have been a problem for Pierluigi Martini as he went through. Roberto Guerrero coming through for 1.3 seconds. There is Martini. Martini's pulling off in the final chicane. Well, that puts the kibosh on the statistic that the Minardi has got to the finish of every race so far this year, because now it hasn't in Canada. It'll still be classified as a finisher, but Martini pulls off on the main straight, and that is very unfortunate indeed for the Minardi driver, not going any further. So the reliability record has definitely been given a real hammer blow there for the Minardi team. As there's the other Coloni, and Roberto Moreno about to lose ground to Ricard Rydell. So Rydell dives through. This is a great run from the Real driver. Ricard Rydell looking very strong here. Ricard Rydell doing well. I'll tell you who else is doing well. Eric Comas in the other Minardi, right up there in the top 10. It's been a bit of a strange race, this one. Quite a few drivers that we haven't seen in the top 10 too often have emerged, as Johnny Herbert tries to take on Eric Comas. He's trying to turn the tables before the end of the race. He's got him on the ropes. And surely Johnny Herbert can dive into that final chicane. No, he can't. Comas shuts the door on him. And Minardi keeps him back. Guerrero has now responded to Fittipaldi catching him. He's trying to get the battles. It looks like Fittipaldi's trying to close up on Guerrero still. But Roberto Guerrero really needs to step on this now. With just over a lap to go. Really needs to shut down that attack from Christian Fittipaldi. There is De Cesaris in third place. Still looking okay for the Coloni team to get through to the Grand Prix. But now Fittipaldi's really got to push. So 1.2 seconds is the gap between the two leaders as they come through. Christian Fittipaldi trying to close in and pass Roberto Guerrero in the lead. It won't make a difference even if he doesn't get through because it's only the first three teams across the line. And they will all obviously progress through to the qualifying session for the Grand Prix. Quite a reduced distance for the pre-qualifying race. Here's Barbazza making a recovery. Such a shame for him as he gets past Ivan Capelli. Could easily have been a contender for the victory, this one, Fabrizio Barbazza. So, a real shame. De Cesaris, 12 seconds back from the leaders. But fortunately for him, in third place. So that's going to be good enough to put the Coloni into the Grand Prix this time. But Guerrero and Fittipaldi have done exactly what they needed to do to come through. A really exciting performance from the teams. Certainly for Guerrero in front of Fittipaldi, this is exactly what they wanted. Fittipaldi in the Lamborghini has not quite done enough to close up on the race leader and go for the victory, but it doesn't matter. Lamborghini will go through, but so too will the team in front of them, the Ford Eurobrun squad, and it's a victory for Roberto Guerrero in the pre-qualifying race here in Canada. Great performance from Ford Eurobrun, brilliant from Modena Lamborghini, and also for Coloni. Those are not the three teams you probably would have expected to go through, but they are the three teams that make it. What a shame for Damon Hill. The non-stop strategy was only 18 seconds away from the victory and only 6 seconds away from qualification. Fair play to the Zach Speed team. They've done great today. Tommy Byrne and Joachim Winkelhock, 5th and 6th place for these two. They really do need an opportunity to get into faster equipment because I've got a feeling both drivers would be very impressive. As you can see, 17 cars making the actual finish of the race. Tough old pre-qualifying race, this one. Roberto Guerrero, the Colombian, for the Ford Eurobrun Works team, which will become a Ford brand in 1992. That is all we are told. Now, that could be anything. That could be a Jaguar team. That could be an Aston Martin team. Goodness knows what the team is going to look like next year. But we are told, rumours in the press, of course, nothing concrete yet. We are told that it will be a Ford brand in 1992. That could just mean it's the Ford Formula One team, but we'll have to see how that all progresses and plays out. So here is the result. Roberto Guerrero in front of Christian Fittipaldi. Andrea De Cesaris in third. It's Eurobrun, Modena and Coloni that get through to the Grand Prix. Damon Hill in front of Tommy Byrne and Joe Winkelhock from Rickard Rydell and Roberto Moreno. Then Johnny Herbert and Paul Tracy from Eric Comas in the Minardi. Martin Donnelly, Pirro, Larini, Leto, Barbazza and Capelli. And then Martini is classified as a finisher, although he failed to. Suspension and engine taking out everybody except for Laurent Aiello, who had a loose wheel. That's what put him out of the race. It was suspension failure that put Chiva out of the race then. And Katayama and Suzuki, look at that, a full second faster than anybody else, the Hondas. The problem was they just weren't reliable on this particular occasion. So the battles will continue to rage for the Canadian Grand Prix, and they are going to be all itching to go racing as we gear up for the main event. And so here we are then for the main event, the Canadian Grand Prix of 1991. Now, for those who have not been able to follow the previous races of the season, it was a double victory in the first 2 races of the year for the young German talent Michael Schumacher in his new berth at Ferrari alongside Nigel Mansell. 2 wins for him in America and Brazil, just in front of Alessandro Nannini in the Benetton and Gerhard Berger in the McLaren in race 1. In Brazil, it was Berger in second in Brazil and Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Tyrrell in 3rd position. Quite incredible, really, that Frentzen has now been dropped from the Tyrrell team going into the Canadian Grand Prix. The San Marino Grand Prix, however, has seen Thierry Boutsen, the Belgian, take the victory after his teammate Ayrton Senna was denied cruelly on the final lap in Imola of his first win of the season. Second place for Gerhard Berger in front of Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari. And then last time out, we had Prost ahead of Mansell and Patrese in the Ligier coming through in Monaco. So it was a fantastic race. But now let's get ready for the 5th Grand Prix of the season. And it's Senna and Prost, front row of the starting grid for the Porsche Williams and the Brabham. Boutsen is 3rd on the grid. Michael Schumacher, the double race winner at the start of the season, in 4th from Nigel Mansell and Michele Alboreto in the Lotus. Mika Hakkinen, last year's world champion, in front of Derek Warwick in the Lotus. And then in row 5, it is Riccardo Patrese alongside McLaren's Gerhard Berger. His teammate Alessandro Nannini is 11th on the grid alongside Stefano Modena in the first of the Lolas. Then Eddie Irvine alongside Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell. Martin Brundle is alongside Eddie Cheever, good qualifying from the Ford Eurobrun. Mauricio Gugelmin is alongside the new Tyrrell driver Rubens Barrichello, the talented young Brazilian. Nelson Piquet is alongside Frentzen on the grid, who is now Piquet's teammate at Arrows. Guerrero is alongside Mark Blundell, Paul Tracy, Roberto Moreno, and on the back of the grid it's Christian Fittipaldi and Andrea De Cesaris. So time to go racing in Canada. It's a big opportunity for the Porsche Williams driver Ayrton Senna, fresh off the back of being a guest driver for the Porsche North America team and the Indy 500, where he took a surprise and shock victory. So Senna won the 500. Can he win a Grand Prix this year? Let's find out. From the front of the grid we go, and Ayrton Senna gets up to the first corner first. But Prost is going to try and outdrag him. In fact, Prost has outdragged him. Prost beats Senna to the first corner. But Senna shoots forward. No, that's Boutsen. And there's contact further back. There's damage. There's damage for Berger, I think, in the McLaren. He seems to have overshot. There's a yellow flag out. Oh, it's Modena. Modena's brilliant qualifying has all gone up in tatters, and he's collided with Alessandro Nannini in the McLaren. So Nannini and Modena, the 2 Italians, have collided with each other. That's ruined Nannini's race. Yet again, has thrown a bit of a curveball for the McLaren team. It's the 3rd unforced error from the McLaren driver in a row, as here comes Senna, making his bid up the inside of Prost, and he's through. So Senna, not waiting around to make the overtake, has got that done pretty quickly. The 2 Porsche Williams cars are now 1st and 2nd. Boutsen with a sensational start though. As Schumacher now makes his bid on the inside of Mansell and almost has a chance to go for Prost in the same breath. So the Ferrari's going well. But the Porsche Williams cars are 1 and 2. Boutsen ahead of Senna. Then Prost, Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Riccardo Patrese, Gerhard Berger and Michele Alboreto. To the end of the first lap through the chicane, and Mansell having another look at his teammate, and he's gone for it. Nigel Mansell, Il Leone, gets through past his teammate Michael Schumacher. Good start to proceedings. It looks as though Patrese and Berger in the Ligier and McLarens are going to be pushing forward as well. Here's Michele Alboreto in the Lotus, ditching their famous yellow colour scheme of last year, tying up with the Castrol brand, for that more traditional British racing green vibe. Lotus team, harkening back to their good old days. Brabham, well here. The new commercial deal they've done with Yaesu and quite a few of the Welsh brands. Here's Senna making his bid on the inside of Boutsen, and he's switched back to the mid-pack. Exactly the wrong moment, because Senna has just taken the lead from his teammate. So we're watching the Arrows pair battling away. Well, that's John Alesi trying to make his bid on the inside of one of the Colonies. But he's got an Arrows behind him, and I think that's the new boy Heinz-Harald Frentzen. But this deal has been rushed and haphazarded so quickly for the Arrows team that they've still got the old stickers on the car left over by their Mexican youngster Adrian Fernandez, who's walked away from the team. Been given license to run them until the end of the Mexican Grand Prix, after which point they've got to take them off, and I think that's only because they want the branding on the Arrows car for the Mexican Grand Prix coming up. Senna leads the way now. Boutsen in second from Prost, Mansell and Schumacher. So it's 2 Williams cars, the Brabham and the 2 Ferraris. It's Rubens Barrichello, the Tyrrell driver, fitting himself very well, this young Brazilian talent. boy in the world of Grand Prix racing. This is his Grand Prix debut. The Tyrrell team being quite draconian. Last time out at Monaco, they said if Frentzen doesn't place in the points, he's out. And he was quite angry with the way that team manager Sam Hall dealt with it. Ken Tyrrell deferred to Sam Hall on that particular occasion. Sam said he needs to go, so he's ended up at Arrows for the remainder of the season. There's Mark Blundell in the reliable but not particularly quick Benetton. They've really struggled at the start of 1991, to be fair. Mark Blundell still doing as good a job as he can. Martin Brundle, his teammate, is in 13th place. I think Mark Blundell got caught up in the first start shenanigans in that first corner. Still, they continue to battle on. There's Mansell. He's got past Prost. So Nigel Mansell has now moved his way past Alain Prost. The hunt for the Canadian Grand Prix has definitely gone strong. Fascinating situation. But the Williams Porsches are now first and second. Senna leading Boutsen. Apparently there's a report coming in that Boutsen actually got punted into the lead by one of the Ferraris. So an interesting situation. Warwick in the Lotus, continuing on his way. They go up the hill. Okay, now the Lotus team they're trying to stay afloat. They're really struggling for funds at the moment. The Lotus team are convinced that there are better days ahead. They're going to continue to look for them. Boutsen, Mansell, Prost, Schumacher, Patrese as we ride on board with Nigel Mansell. Il Leone himself. He was second at Monaco last time out. His best ever finish on the streets in Monaco. He could really do with a good result here as Mika Hakkinen makes a big lunge. Five still on the inside of Alboreto. We now look at Jean Alesi. Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell. Start, it has to be said. Not exactly getting the best of it at the moment as he runs through. Jean Alesi working forward in the 1991 Canadian Grand Prix. As they run through, and that is Cheever. So clearly the problems that he had in pre-qualifying have come back to bite him again in the race itself. So Eddie Cheever not able to finish the Canadian Grand Prix. He got to lap 5, which was not quite as far as he wanted to go. He wanted to go a lot further into the race than that. So a lot of long faces for Eddie Cheever this time, dropping out of both the pre-qualifying. Oh, and that's one of the Tyrrells in trouble. That's one of the Tyrrells in trouble. I think that's Barrichello. Rubens Barrichello in trouble on his debut, so it doesn't really seem as though the Tyrrell team are really able to give Rubens a fair assessment as to whether or not he is the man to move the team forward. As we watch Roberto Guerrero trying to dodge the Tyrrell. Oh, Rubens Barrichello gets off the racing line, but it's really thrown a curveball into the mix, and who's benefiting from it? It's Jean Alesi. Alesi is starting to work his way through the field as Rubens Barrichello is going to pull the car off the road. And I'm afraid the Brazilian is out on his Grand Prix debut. He doesn't really make a massive impression this time, but the Formula 3 race winner is retired from the race. It's a big opportunity for Rubens Barrichello, and the Tyrrell does not see him to the end of the race. Up and over the top of the crest, right on board with Andrea De Cesaris in the Coloni. Still the drivers battle on. Impressive situation that we have here. Up in front though, it is this man, Ayrton Senna, in the Porsche Williams, who continues to run up at the front with very little hesitation from anyone up in the run. And that's Derek Warwick pulling off. Oh, he's got a loose wheel. You can see his left wheel, his left rear wheel is wobbling off the car. So Derek Warwick, I'm afraid that's worked loose by the look of it, whether he's hit a wall somewhere or hit another driver, whatever it might be. But I'm afraid Derek Warwick in the Lotus is out of the Canadian Grand Prix. You can just about see his car there being recovered by the marshals. So a very tricky situation already then for the Lotus team and for the Tyrrell team as well. And there is Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna running a good race out in front. Here's Frentzen in his new berth at the Arrows team. Now tries to close up on Roberto Guerrero. He's made the move then, Frentzen, to get into 16th place past the Modena Lamborghini. Frentzen was dumped by Tyrrell rather quickly after Monaco. It was a little bit more than just a result of his brewing there at Tyrrell. The young charge Rubens Barrichello is now in the car alongside Jean Alesi. Boutsen continues in second place in the Porsche Williams. Very strong run indeed for the team as they run first and second. But look how much of a gap Senna's pulled on his teammate. 6.4 seconds. Senna is absolutely rapid here. And obviously now that the Porsche Williams has got its act together a little bit, they struggled in the first 2 races, but now that their car is a race-winning car again, Thierry Boutsen has already proved itself to be one. But they did have mechanical problems last time out as Mansell locks up in the hairpin. I'll expect to see that a few times during the Grand Prix. Schumacher is actually struggling to stay with Alain Prost at the moment, as he's falling into the clutches of Ricardo Patrese and Gerhard Berger in the Ligier and McLaren. I wonder if they've got some rather interesting strategy being cooked up at Ferrari. Have they gone for a split strategy? And it would not at all surprise me if they've done the same thing at Williams. Maybe put Senna onto a more aggressive strategy than Thierry Boutsen. This could end up being quite a thrill of the Grand Prix. Here's Frentzen. Oh, Frentzen really trying his best to get past Roberto Guerrero. He's lost none of his fire, has the young German. Nigel Mansell made his bid. He goes through the chicane and then onto that stretch up towards the next right-left complex. The Ferrari team looking very strong at this early stage of the season. Their man Michael Schumacher currently still leading the championship by 4 points to Gerhard Berger and 18 points to Nigel Mansell. The Ferrari team looking very strong, and they currently lead the Constructors' Championship, of course, by 4 points to McLaren, with Tyrrell currently sat in third place in the Constructors' Championship, hence why a lot of people feel it was really draconian of them to ditch Heinz-Harald Frentzen at such an early point in the season. But Frentzen doesn't mind. He seems to be enjoying a battle here in the Arrows, still having a good run. Thierry Boutsen over the line, 8 seconds back, and here's Nannini, makes a big lunge, dives in on the inside of Roberto Guerrero. The McLaren driver trying to fight his way back into contention. So he continues to make the progress. There's Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari. Still going strong. Still trying to make as much progress as he can as they go through the chicane, right and left. There's Mika Häkkinen, last year's world champion, a complete novice in 1990. Nobody would have expected him to become a world champion. As a result, the team is now vastly better funded, vastly better powered as well. The new Ilmor engine is essentially a derivative of the blueprints for what could end up being a Mercedes Grand Prix entry. And with the Sauber Mercedes team doing so well in the World Sports Car Championship, that can only be interesting. As Modena goes off the road, well, he's got a mechanical problem of some kind by the look of it. So he manages to keep going. But Stefano Modena in the Lola, definitely not having a good race in it at the time, at this present time. Now, of course, as has already been mentioned as part of the regulations, there are 10 teams that are allowed to go through to the Grand Prix. And at the midway point of the season, just like in previous pre-qualifying years, the top 10 teams at the halfway point of the season in the Constructors' Championship are the ones that are going to be given an automatic dispensation to start races. And that means that Honda, with their 1 championship point so far, their 2 championship points so far this season, the 2 10th place finishes that they had in Brazil and San Marino, they are looking to join the top 10 fraternity moving forward. The team that would get knocked out of the top 10 is Arrows, that have currently not scored a single point. Benetton have, though. They're safe because they have scored 6 points over the course of the first 4 races. Only 11 teams have scored points so far this season of the 23 that currently race in Grand Prix. The 2 non-qualifiers, that 2 pre-qualifiers, I should say, that have scored points are Honda and Poloni. In the Lola. Battles continuing here at the Canadian Grand Prix of Montreal, round 5 of the 1991 Grand Prix World Championship. Senna in front of Boutsen, Mansell, Prost, Schumacher, Patrese and Berger. And there is the lock-up from Alessandro Nannini. We're going to see that from a few drivers over the course of this Grand Prix, I'm sure. But certainly the McLaren driver, Alessandro Nannini, under massive pressure. There is a little bit of a potential internal restructure about to happen at McLaren. As apparently there is a little bit of dissension in the ranks of McLaren. Apparently there could be a management change mid-season. Senna going for the moves there on the Lamborghini and getting through. So Senna ahead now of the modern Lamborghini. We watch Mansell go through the chicane on the approach to the very tight hairpin. Senna, Boutsen, Mansell, Prost, Schumacher, Patrese, Berger, Irvine, Hakkinen, Alboreto. That's the top 10 and the current point scorers. But still, they continue to battle on. Still they battle on. Ayrton Senna running another good race here. Continue to run forwards. Here's Mark Blundell getting his move on the Lamborghini in front of him. That's Paul Tracy having to get out of the way. So there they go. Ayrton Senna continue to run forward. Senna in the Porsche Williams. He's led twice led almost every lap of the San Marino Grand Prix before conking out on the very final lap of the race. While in the lead, he was still classified in 8th place. He led on lap 1 at Monaco, but then the car broke down instantly on lap 2 with a suspected suspension failure. So they're just pushing the car far too hard. And then he accepted an invitation, what we've been told is a rather pressing invitation from Porsche North America, to go and compete at the Indy 500, which he miraculously, well, I shouldn't say too miraculously, because he is Ayrton Senna, a world champion in 1988 after all. But Ayrton Senna did go on to win the Indy 500. An amazing performance from the Brazilian. He said, well, now that I've won this, I can win anything, so bring on Formula 1 is what he said when he got out of the car. I have a feeling you're going to see a lot more style and speed from Ayrton Senna in the days and weeks to come. Mansell currently running 3rd in the Ferrari, 5 seconds back from Thierry Boutsen in 2nd place. Mansell really is starting to look like the best of the rest in the world of Grand Prix as Senna goes around the outside of Stefano Modena to put a lap on the Lola. Very solid run as he continues. There is Boutsen, his teammate, 2nd place, the Porsche Williams. Having a very smooth and solid race, having taken the victory in the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola earlier in the season just by being in the right place at the right time when his world champion teammate and elder statesman Ayrton Senna was able to come through and take a brilliant... he was leading the race. He hasn't taken a victory in Grand Prix racing yet, as Ayrton Senna. He's had a lot of bad luck in the first 4 races of the year. The best result so far, actually, Ayrton Senna is a 2nd place finish. Sorry, no, it's a 5th place finish. I do apologise. He came 5th in Brazil. And he was classified 8th in Imola despite leading all but the last lap. He was leading on the last lap. He was only about 4 corners from home, unfortunately. So there is Mark Blundell duelling away with the Lotus. It's going to be Derek Warwick. No, it's not Warwick. I apologise. That is his teammate, Michele Alboreto, who, I'm not sure why, but Alboreto has definitely dropped back down the field. He was as high as 8th in one point. There's Alain Prost in the Brabham, just locking up a little bit there, trying to stay ahead of Michael Schumacher and Riccardo Patrese in the Ligier. The Ligier team looking very strong in first position at the moment. Berger still having a very difficult season. 7th place for the McLaren driver at the moment, with Alessandro Nannini having worked his way back into 15th place. Eddie Irvine in the 2nd of the Ligiers is in 8th place. He's a driver to watch out for, really putting in some stellar performances. Currently in 8th place, ahead of Mika Hakkinen, the reigning world champion in the Brabham. A lot of discussions about Mika wanting to leave the Brabham team at the end of 91 and look for sunnier climes. Christian Fittipaldi overshooting. He comes out of the final turn and manages to get the car squared up. Are we about to see him be lapped here by Senna? He's not quite there or thereabouts yet. As Frentzen, by the way, has managed to get past his teammate Nelson Piquet, the 3-time world champion, who also decided to go and take part in the Indy 500, along with his fellow Formula 1 world champion from Brazil. Piquet actually really liked the methodology of IndyCar. He said that it's not bad at all. He's already considered a switch to sports car racing for next year. He's already intimated that 1991 is going to be his last year behind the wheel of a Grand Prix car. And there's going to be apparently a couple of other drivers on this field who are going to be doing the same thing. So Senna out of the hairpin, pushing down the straight straight, charging forward. There's Alboreto, making his bid. Goes down to the first corner once again. Alboreto hoping for the line on the inside, and he's got there, so the Lotus is trying to make a comeback. Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian, still a long way to go in this Canadian Grand Prix. We're about to go into lap 16. He completes the 15th lap. And Senna currently 15 seconds in front of Boutsen, Mansell, Prost, and Schumacher in 5th position, the young German talent. Still the battles rage as we ride on board with Mauricio Gugelmin, the Brazilian. Currently running in 10th place for the Lola team. We're quite happy with that if they can keep this going. Lola have a fair, decent crop of points as well after a shock result for the Lola team. They came home 4th and 5th in America, the very first race of the year. Sadly, they haven't scored a single point since then, have the Lola team. But they certainly opened their account in the finals fashion with 2 top 5 finishes. Certainly not, I think, what the Lola team were predicting going into the season, but they were pleasantly surprised and will take that opportunity. There is Ayrton Senna stretching away out in front. He's obviously got a massive confidence boost from winning the 500 out in the United States. There's an interesting suggestion coming through our wire. Piquet may want to retire early if his team have to pre-qualify. That's an interesting one, isn't it? I'm not sure that Piquet would accept dropping down to pre-qualifying as a 3-time world champion. That wouldn't suit him very well, would it? Fittipaldi, 23rd at the present moment. The next man who is on the scene for him is going to be Ayrton Senna. He's going to come through and close up on his countryman and lap him. Either that or it's either that or Boutsen, but I think Senna hasn't caught up to or lapped. I know he has. So there's Senna's already a couple of cars up the road already from Fittipaldi. That's how quickly he's going. The gap has opened up to 16 seconds. Senna getting to the point where he can make a pit stop and get out ahead of Boutsen without having to worry about Boutsen even making a pit stop. A very comfortable position indeed that Ayrton Senna finds himself in. Great run so far. Here's Nannini trying to take on the Benetton of Brundle. Benetton versus McLaren. Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell has worked his way up to 11th position now. Stalemate between Brundle and Nannini, by the way. And here's an interesting one. Alesi is actually being caught by Frentzen in the Arrows. Former teammates, these two. Teammates for the whole of last year, don't forget. Tyrrell being second in the Constructors' Championship in 1990. Amazing. Brabham and Tyrrell were the top 2 teams. 2 squads that we thought were in death's door, essentially. And they both managed to make resurgent comebacks. Former champion teams, of course. They've done it again as Martin Brundle gets out of the way as Alessandro Nannini overtakes him for position. That is for 13th place. Senna has now caught up to the homeboy, Canada's Paul Tracy. He was really hoping he could get through to his home Grand Prix. He put a lot of that reliance and effort on Christian Fittipaldi up front. Paul Tracy been on his own to do the job. I don't think he would have made it through. A little bit of an adaptation to the world of Grand Prix racing. Paul Tracy. Sanson in the Ferrari once again. Right to the left as he works his way through the chicane. A very solid run of it is Nigel Mansell. Second position, his best result of the season. He has had Grand Prix victories of late for the Ferrari team. Team manager, of course, Chris Cavani, working very closely with the likes of Luca Montezemolo, who is now currently in charge of the operations at Ferrari. There's rumours rife that they are looking to Peugeot's competition manager in France, Jean Todt, potential engineer for the team. Currently in the lead because Senna and Mansell have both made their first pit stops. So Senna will rejoin a few seconds behind Thierry Boutsen, but well aware of the fact that Boutsen will need to pit at some stage anyway. A very interesting scenario. Fittipaldi still having a good race though in the Modena Lamborghini, despite the fact that the Porsche Williams of Thierry Boutsen is coming up to lap him. Senna has rejoined in second, ahead of Prost, Schumacher, Patrese, Berger, Irvine, Hakkinen and Mansell. And Mansell clearly losing a little bit more momentum in terms of his position than Ayrton Senna did from his pit stop. Senna is 11 seconds back from Boutsen in actual pace now. But of course, Boutsen also needs to pit. There's Modena dueling away with the Poloni of Roberto Moreno. We now watch the Lotus of Michele Alboreto, who's had a very difficult race actually. He started well, but since then things have gone badly wrong for Michele Alboreto. I'm not entirely sure what it is that has cost him so much time. So Modena comes into the pits from what is 22nd position. So still the battles rage. Ayrton Senna, second place, 10 seconds back from his teammate Thierry Boutsen, but Boutsen hasn't pitted, Senna has. So still looking very good for the Brazilian as he continues to roll with the punches up front. It's a really solid battle from the Brazilian today, once again here in Canada. Still a long way to go as Modena very nearly joins the retirements list. Locks up in turn 1 and rejoins directly into the path of Eddie Irvine, who has also recently made a pit stop. Irvine is going to lap Stefano Modena in the Lola. These two should really be battling for position by rights. I know Irvine is 7th. Even so, Irvine lapping with Stefano Modena in the Lola. It's not good news, is it? On board with Alain Prost in the Brabham. 3rd position. Getting us prepared for his first visit to the pits. It's a reasonably soon lap or a very late one. That'll determine what sort of pit stop strategy Alain Prost is on. But there is Senna, looking neat and tidy. The position going very well indeed for him. And there is Boutsen coming into the pits as well. So the Williams team have swapped pit stop rotations, separated by just 2 laps. And Senna retakes the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix. Boutsen has a win under his belt this year after winning the San Marino Grand Prix, which should, by many people's opinion, have been won by this man, his teammate Ayrton Senna. But there is the young Ferrari talent Michael Schumacher, who came into this team as an almost unknown and has been able to win the first 2 races of the year. So he's definitely a future world champion, young Michael Schumacher. Keep an eye on him now that he's in the top 3 of the Canadian Grand Prix. Mind you, he hasn't pitted yet. So down to that. Prost hasn't either. Frentzen does. Frentzen pits in on 13th position. He hadn't quite dealt with John Alesi yet. So he's the man who lives to fight another day on that one. There's Prost, Frenchman. The man who won the World Championship in 1985, 86 and 89. 3 times a World Champion. Here we are in the 1991 Canadian Grand Prix, and Prost is giving chase to the back marker up in front of him. It's one of the Colodis. I think that is the Cesaris. So riding on board with the fast, furious and frenetic Michael Schumacher of the Ferrari team, winner of the US and Brazilian Grand Prix. And there is Gugelmin about to lose ground to the Tyrrell. So that is Alesi getting through. And Gerhard Berger in the McLaren is into the pit lane. Meanwhile, Prost is now 2nd. What's happened to Boutsen? What's happened to Boutsen? Where's Boutsen gone? Boutsen has dropped back. Boutsen's dropped quite a long way after his pit stop. Now, I assumed he would be in about 2nd or 3rd position, but no, it's quite natural that Boutsen has dropped a long way back because the others haven't pitted yet, but I did think that Boutsen was going to be a little bit higher up after his visit to the pits. But obviously he's still closer into the pack than Senna is. Senna still has that 10-second lead over Prost. There is Boutsen, right on cue. And he's currently dueling with Mika Hakkinen. And he gets through past the Brabham. So no panic, no issues there. And there is Michael Schumacher currently having caught and passed Riccardo Patrese and Ligier. Mansell, meanwhile, is dueling away and lapping the Lamborghini. So far, but it all just continues going unabated. Senna in the Porsche Williams leads the Canadian Grand Prix on lap 23 out of 69. So we are about 1/3 distance as Riccardo Patrese comes into the pits in 4th. Piquet makes his bid on Martin Brundle and he gets through. Nicely done from Nelson Piquet, but he's still outside the points for the time being. The Arrows team obviously trying to raise their game and raise their profile a little bit more. There is Ayrton Senna in the Porsche Williams, running very solidly out in the lead of the race. Prost in 2nd, Schumacher in 3rd. Boutsen is now into 4th place thanks to the pit stops. Hakkinen is 5th from Mansell, Alesi, Patrese, Gugelmin and Nannini. Eddie Irvine makes his way to the pits for his pit stop in the Ligier. He's only recently been in, hasn't he? So that's going to drop him even further down the order. I'm afraid Eddie Irvine's chances of a podium have taken a massive hammer blow. Senna, away from the traffic, as there is Martin Brundle, a puff of smoke as he locks up, trying to keep up with Nelson Piquet. I really am interested to see what happens with this Benetton team over the course of the next few weeks, as apparently they have big upgrades coming to their Porsche engine. And obviously the main progress has so far been focused on the Porsche Williams team, and that's Blundell in the other Benetton Porsche. So I'm afraid Mark Blundell is now the man who joins the retirements list for the Apple Benetton Porsche team. They've really got to hope that things are going to get better for them over time, because they have two very talented racing drivers in Martin Brundle and Mark Blundell, and they're just not getting the opportunity to showcase their skills, and certainly not being able to score the points they deserve to. A 7th and a 9th for the Benetton team so far this year. As Eddie Irvine lunges at the inside of the Coloni. That is Roberto Moreno, I do believe. Get through without any questions asked. Still making solid progress as we look at Prost briefly, and then Frentzen making his bid to get through on Paul Tracy in the Lamborghini. This is a great little duel. But Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who was part of the Tyrrell team, is now part of the Arrows team. Across the line, Ayrton Senna. Still working hard, and that's a McLaren in trouble. That is Berger. Gerhard Berger smoking. The car is a plume of white smoke coming out from behind it. So I'm afraid Gerhard Berger is not going to go the distance of the Canadian Grand Prix. And McLaren's woes are just going from bad to worse here as we look at Piquet. He now gets past Nannini, and he can see in the distance that there is a car in big trouble. That is, of course, the McLaren of Gerhard Berger. We ride with Nelson Piquet in the Arrows, and there is Berger. Well, it's a disappointment for the McLaren team so far in 1991. Really hasn't been their season so far yet. But there is Gerhard Berger pulling in at the chicane to retire. And there's the other McLaren going wheel to wheel with an Arrows. That is Piquet, and Brundle's just got past both of them. Brundle certainly got on the inside of Nannini anyway. And he's now trying to take on Nelson Piquet up front. So as Berger retires from the Canadian Grand Prix, his teammate reaches out to Piquet and Brundle. But the sole remaining McLaren is in 13th place. Bit of a headache for the team that was winning races last year. And Martin Brundle trying his best now to get past Piquet. He's done it. Martin Brundle has made his way through, so that is good work from the Benetton driver to get himself one step closer to the points. Meanwhile though, here is the reigning world champion, Mika Häkkinen in the Brabham. Going very well indeed for the youngster. Nobody would have thought him even getting a Grand Prix drive last year, let alone going for a Grand Prix victory. But Brabham decided they were going to take a chance on young Mika Häkkinen, and boy were they right. Here they come. Senna ahead of Prost, Schumacher, Boutsen and Häkkinen. That's your top 5 at the moment. Mansell in 6th position, then Ricciardo and Tracy in the Ligier. Here's Mansell getting his bid on Häkkinen. And it looks like he got the move done, but we switched away at exactly the wrong moment, as now we're looking at Piquet, who is behind Brundle and Nannini. This is not excellent news for the Arrows team. We have 2 cars still going. But Piquet is 13th and Frentzen is 15th, and a lap down from Senna now. As Brundle continues this duel in very close proximity with Alessandro Nannini in the McLaren. Nannini gets through, and that puts him into 11th. So Brundle just has to keep the focus. On board once more with Ayrton Senna briefly, as Stefano Modena gets his bid completely chopped away from whoever was overtaking him to lap him. I think it was one of the Porsche Williams cars. But still, Irvine all over the back of one of the modern Lamborghinis, and I think that's for position. Irvine's got a good run here. Is this going to be a chance up the inside line? I think it was. Our director here really is choosing the worst possible moments to cut away from all of the overtakes today, as Boutsen gets past one of the Colonies, who is going very slowly, even for a Colony. So I think we're about to have another retirement. It looks to me as though it's one of the Colony drivers. I couldn't tell from there whether it was Roberto Moreno or whether it was Andrea De Cesaris. It's certainly a Colony going very slowly. As we now look at the Colombian Roberto Guerrero, 14th position in the Ford Eurogroup. Still, the drivers just take their time about this. Looking it up corner by corner, just trying to work their way through. Very solid run so far from Roberto Guerrero. Ayrton Senna leading the way though in the Porsche Williams, trying to close in on that car. The Brazilian looks pretty neat and tidy up front, but then we said that in Imola, didn't we? We couldn't quite believe going into the final lap there was smoke billowing out of the back of the Porsche Williams. This is the thing, when this car is fast, it's unbelievably fast. When it's unreliable, history books doesn't write how close the driver really came from the Grand Prix. They usually write about who won it. Modena all over the back of the Colony. Modena putting out of the slipstream to try and put the Lola through, and through goes Stefano Modena, makes the overtake as Prost is trying to get away from Schumacher, and Mansell is trying to close in on Boutsen. Now, interestingly, Nigel Mansell's pace in relation to Boutsen is not that bizarre. Ferrari's generally very quick in 1991 so far. Wouldn't have won the first two races if it wasn't. So they've clearly done their homework after a tough 1990 as Modena gets out of the way and lets the Ferrari go past without any major hesitations. There's Nigel Mansell doing the manoeuvre. We're on board with Michael Schumacher, the talented young German, who's now part of the Ferrari team. Boys at Ferrari clearly saw something in this young German talent that they liked, as Mika Häkkinen runs in P6 in the Brabham off the top of the turn. Still the battle rages on for Mika Häkkinen in the top six of a Grand Prix once again. The Brabham doesn't quite seem to have the same sort of strength and overall pace and package that it did last year, but Alain Prost did win the Monaco Grand Prix. Can't take too much away from Brabham. Certainly when this half-distance point comes into play, some of the teams are going to be quite relieved that they are in the top 10 after the difficulties that they've had in the first 5 races of the year. There are other teams that are going to be rather embarrassed that they won't make it. So a very tricky situation, but there is the Ferrari, still going strong. Michael Schumacher, the German talent who won both the American Grand Prix on the Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland and the Brazilian Grand Prix on the Interlagos circuit. Didn't see those races? Well, you can stay subscribed to this channel and you can go back and watch them, as well as the recent coverage we provided of the Indy 500 of 1991. Dramatically and controversially won by one of the drivers on the grid, in fact the one who's leading the race right now. There he is, Ayrton Senna, the man who has captured the hearts of racing fans on both sides of the Atlantic now, doing the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indy 500, to add to his fantastic performance at Monaco. There are rumours circulating that Senna might even go for the triple. Porsche have a team in the Le Mans 24 Hours, don't forget. So having won Monaco and having won the Indy 500, what chance of Senna going for the triple? Only one driver has ever won the triple, and that is Graham Hill. Into the pit lane comes Michael Schumacher. So here we go. This is the one-stop strategy being played out now for the drivers who are only stopping once. So Schumacher is into this. Stop what he did have. Would have been about 7.5 to 8 seconds, I would think. Modena gets out of the way and lets the Brabham swing past. It looks like it was a bit longer than 6 to 7 seconds actually for the Ferrari team. They were only just leaving the bay when Häkkinen flashed past into 5th position. Tracy has got through into P6, so Schumacher still has a long way to go, but it's not over. There's Prost in the Brabham, 21 seconds behind Ayrton Senna. Senna's got a good car underneath him, and he's in the right mood. It's just impossible to catch, impossible to beat. battle on. Okay, now coming into the pits as well. And now we watch Ayrton Senna running out in the lead. 22 seconds there of Prost, then Boutsen, Mansell, Hakkinen, and Schumacher, Alesi, Alboreto, and the final point currently looking to go the way of the Lola of Maurizio Gugelmin. Tracy's now in the pits. And that is Michael Schumacher locking up big time at the hairpin. Goodness me. Michael Schumacher nearly throwing it away. Got to be very careful to make mistakes like that. They will be punished big time. All the drivers still working their magic around the course. Into the chicane. There is Michael Schumacher. Throwing his weight around. Putting on a good display. Straight up to the crest once again. There is Maurizio Gugelmin pulling off. The final point for Lola, I'm afraid, has now gone up in smoke and flame. Martin Brundle has now got into 10th position in the Benetton. So I'm afraid for Maurizio Gugelmin there will be no points in the Lola. I don't think there's going to be any points for Modena either. So the flash of brilliance in America is really the only joy that the Lola team can really count on since the start of this season. There is Roberto Guerrero, the Colombian, in front of Frentzen in the Arrows and Eddie Irvine in the Ligier. He's had a bit of a tricky race. I think Irvine's only just come in for his one stop, so that's why he finds himself down in 13th from the lap of grid. Either that or he's had problems we haven't seen. Here as Alain Prost runs very close behind the McLaren. Tracy having a bit of an issue there. He's tuning away with one of the Ligiers. And up the inside goes the Ligier. I think that's to put a lap on him rather than to pass him. That's for Tracy, I think. Trying to stay ahead of Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, who's only just rejoined from the pits down in 7th. The podium is still looking likely as Nannini now gets the run on the inside of a Brabham to unlap himself. Now that's interesting. That only means one of two things. The McLaren is suddenly coming back onto the pace, or the Brabham's got a problem. Guerrero dives in on Frentzen, gets the move for 11th position. So Frentzen's now got a duel with the talented Ulsterman, Eddie Irvine. Irvine and Ligier trying to dive in at the inside of Frentzen. Neither driver is prepared to give best. They just hold on to the inside line. As Thierry Boutsen crosses the line himself. 3rd position, 10 seconds back from Alain Prost in the Brabham. Looking good for another podium finish in the Porsche Williams. So far so good for Thierry Boutsen. Off the corner and back up the hill. So Senna, Prost, Boutsen, Mansell, Hakkinen. As we go to the half-distance lap this time by. At the end of this one, they'll be on the half point of the race. And there's Nelson Piquet locking up the brakes a little bit as he tries to get himself back up to speed. Jean Alesi in the pits in 8th position. And Michele Alboreto coming in from P9 as well. So we've still got a few different bits and pieces to talk about because obviously we've got some more great races coming up in the 1991 season. The race after this one is the Mexican Grand Prix on the phenomenal Mexico City circuit. Everyone is expected to struggle there because it could be one of those races where the high altitude rate really affects people. So we're going to have a bit of a crazy day at the office. There's Thierry Boutsen, 3rd position in the Porsche Williams. As Alain Prost in the Brabham now comes into the pits. And that, of course, promotes the Williams to 2nd position once again. Schumacher makes a very wide lunge to lap one of the Colonies. I think that's Moreno trying to get out of the way. Actually, no, it might be Cesaris. But certainly Boutsen now through into 2nd place once again. But the Williams cars both need to hit one more time. I think Alain Prost only needs to hit the once. So who's got it right? The 1 stop or the 2 stop? But this is the kind of circuit where if you get the pit stop strategy slightly awry, as long as you're on fresher tyres towards the end, you'll still have a pretty good race of it. Alain Prost is going to be hoping that it's don't get as good a race as he is set to get. It does look as though Prost is only on a 1-stop strategy. Porsche Williams finally looking for a win in the hands of Ayrton Senna. So close on the last two races. Tracy diving in at the inside, getting his move to go forward. But Paul Tracy, the cheers from the crowd whenever he goes past, it's really pleasing because it's been a long time since there's been a Canadian Grand Prix driver. And Paul Tracy getting through to the Grand Prix on his debut in Canada. A very impressive run. Certainly a decent result to be happy about. So there's obviously still going to be some more great battles to come here at the Canadian Grand Prix, round 5 of the championship. 3 different winners for the first 4 races. Michael Schumacher twice in the Ferrari. The Porsche Williams of this man, Thierry Boutsen, last time out at Monaco, it was Alain Prost of the Brabham team. We've also had 3 different teams win Grand Prix this year as well. Ayrton Senna knows perfectly well that he would dearly love to get one of those race wins out of the way and put himself back into the title fight. We ride on board with Hunter Frentzen in the Arrows. Fraser got an into his hand, dropped by the Tyrrell team, and then taken on almost immediately by Arrows. They felt they could do with a little bit of a shake-up thanks to the absence of Adrian Fernandez, who incidentally has now dropped down to the Arrows testing program. And he is still under contract to the Arrows team, technically speaking, Adrian Fernandez, but he doesn't want to continue. As Nelson Piquet gets unceremoniously lapped by Thierry Boutsen in the Porsche Williams. This is turning into a bit of a nightmare of a season for Nelson Piquet. He certainly doesn't want to get wrapped up in too many more of these incidents. Nigel Mansell still going strong in 3rd position, the Ferrari. There is Paul Tracy, the Canadian star, on lap 38 out of 69. Not that he's on lap 38, he's actually on lap 37 because he's a lap down. And that's De Cesaris. That is Andrea De Cesaris, I'm afraid, who is out of the race. They got through to the Grand Prix, but they don't go much further. They went beyond half distance, to be fair, but the Coloni team now down by 1, as Roberto Moreno is now the sole remaining Coloni in the Canadian Grand Prix. And there's Martin Brundle in the Benetton, doing a fair job there in 8th position in the sole remaining Porsche Benetton. Senna, Boutsen, Mansell, Hakkinen, Prost is your top 5. 6th place for Patrese in front of Michael Schumacher. Then 8th for Brundle, 9th for Jean Alesi, and 10th place for the Lotus, the sole remaining Lotus, incidentally, of Michele Alboreto. Then it's Eddie Irvine in the Ligier, 11th position, and a lap down. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Arrows, who is actually ahead of his teammate Piquet, 3 times world champion, who is 14th behind Alessandro Nannini in the McLaren, and Stefano Modena in the Lola, currently running 15th place. There aren't many cars behind them. But this man ploughs on. Ayrton Senna in the Porsche Williams, still going strong, still having a great race of it. And it's going really well for the Porsche Williams team this time. Mind you, we said that in Imola, we said that in Monaco. We really want to get some wins on the board. But in terms of the championship fight, a win for Ayrton Senna would do his title aspirations the power of good. Because at the moment, Senna is currently sat in 11th place in the Drivers' Championship. If he goes up to 27, he'll already be mixing it with the Nanninis and Patreses of this world. So that would definitely do him the power of good to be looking at the top 5 of the championship. As Hakkinen comes in P4, and I'm fairly sure this is pit stop number 2. This rotation is going relatively far in the race, but still not as far as I thought they would. Now, from the Mexican Grand Prix, there's obviously going to be some new car upgrades. There's going to be some potential driver changes as well, from what I hear on the grapevine. There could even be some livery changes, because a few commercial deals are being done behind the scenes. Modena in the Lola, still running very rapidly at the moment. But it's not fast enough to be anything other than 15th. As Martin Brundle in the Benetton comes into the pits. Well, there is Mansell. The Ferrari, Il Leone, man who is currently fighting for the championship. There's Riccardo Patrese coming through as well. Mansell only has 22 points, the same as Alessandro Nannini. Patrese has 18, Prost has 17, Orica has 16, Booten and Frentzen both have 15, Alesi has 13, Senna has 12, so there's still a very long way to go in this Drivers' Championship. Senna's got to wait until at least the Mexican Grand Prix to even get close to the tallied scores of Michael Schumacher and Gerhard Berger. But Berger, of course, will not finish here in Canada. Schumacher is currently looking at 6th position. So there's still a lot to do, still a lot of data to acquire. Still a lot of battles through the field. But Senna still controlling the pace very nicely indeed as the contenders continue. Porsche Williams continuing on their way. 1 and 2, the Porsche Williams pairing. Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari third, from Prost in the Brabham, and then Patrese in the Ligier. As we watch Paul Tracy, the Canadian star, on home soil, getting lapped there by Ayrton Senna. With Thierry Boots and his teammate 43 seconds back. That is absolutely mammoth pace. And it just shows you how fast the Porsche Williams in the hands of Ayrton Senna is. He has a good car underneath him. He really just disappears from the rest of the brigade. On board with the Ligier, Riccardo Patrese. He's had a very quiet but very productive season so far, Riccardo Patrese. He has scored points in every single race this year. Only Alessandro Nannini has also managed to do that, as team as Michael Schumacher. Everybody else has not managed to score points in every race so far this year, so just 3 drivers have the perfect scoring record. Sorry, 4 up until this race, because Derek Warwick retired. No, my apologies, because he had an 11th place finish. But there is, coming up the inside, that's Mansell, I think, lapping Roberto Guerrero in the Ford Eurobrew. As they continue, some more great races still to come. He's up on the top, there's Mansell, behind the 2 Porsche Williams cars, but Mansell could really do with a strong result here to keep his championship hopes alive and kicking. He's had a podium, second last time out, of course, and, obviously a third and a second. He really wants to win now. If the 2 cars in front of him drop out, all of a sudden Nigel Mansell becomes a Grand Prix winner in 1991. That's got to be playing on his mind a little bit. Have to finish the race fastest lap, just have to finish the race. There's Nannini having trouble in the hairpin again. What a miserable day at the office this is for McLaren. The team are really struggling to find their feet at the moment. Really a major reshuffle at the McLaren team heading into Mexico. Thierry Boots. Oh, that's Roberto Guerrero. That's the other Ford Eurobrew now. Well, that's very unfortunate indeed, as we now say goodbye to the second Ford Eurobrew from this race. They've done a good job. They're getting better all the time before the major Ford factory effort in 1992, whatever that's going to turn out to be. Thierry Boots having a very solid race now in second place, 45 seconds behind his team leader Ayrton Senna. And this is lap 43 out of 69. Plugging away. Still a decent battle to come in the second half of this Grand Prix. But there are more pit stops to come for the drivers who are going to do 2-stop strategies. Mansell, third position. Booten, Patrese and Prost, who are still dueling over 4th and 5th. Patrese is the one currently behind the Frenchman Alain Prost. Like Nelson Piquet down in 14th is a 3-time world champion. There's Patrese lapping the Lola. Riccardo Patrese, I was going to say he's had a very quiet race season so far. 8th, a 9th, and a 3rd, which has suddenly put him back into reasonable title-winning contention, actually, the Ligier driver. Definitely not worth getting rid of. Really tough time in the Williams car last year, beat Ricardo Patrese. There is Mika Häkkinen. What a tough season it's been for Mika Häkkinen. It's like all of the good stuff has happened all at once for him in 1990. Mind you, I don't think a lot of people expected him to emerge as world champion last year. It was only really bad luck for Senna in Adelaide that really put paid to the Brazilians' second world championship title. As Senna comes into the pits. Now, I don't think he's going to lose the lead at all. He's not going to come close, in fact. He can get out the car, have a cup of tea, tie his shoelaces, get back in and still be out in front. Mansell trying to catch up to Boutsen. Cross ahead of Patrese and Schumacher. So the Mansell-Ferrari combination looking good. There are rumours that things could be shaken up for 1992, whether that's in Grand Prix racing or further afield. I know he's been speaking quite rapidly this weekend to Mario Andretti, who is of course the father of Michael, IndyCar driver. Potential conversation in the air about some shake-ups there, about some potential changes. But obviously, you never know which team is going to change what going into the second third of the season. Of course, there are 17 races total in 1991. This is only the fifth of them. The next one coming up is the Mexico Grand Prix. We hear that there's going to be quite a few teams coming to Mexico with upgrades. They'll definitely be tested, won't they, on the Mexico City circuit. It's definitely going to be tricky. Across the line comes the Lamborghini. The Lamborghini team have really been steadily getting on with developing this car, but what a car it is turning out to be. It's dependable. It's obviously got two fairly decent drivers to hunt with at the moment, and Paul Tracy. But they just need a little bit more luck by the look of things. Particularly luck on Friday and Saturday during qualifying. Now this will be an interesting dynamic. You've got Senna, or is that Boutsen? I think that's Boutsen actually, trying to close up and pass doesn't want to be passed as Senna laps Moreno in the Coloni. And Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari comes into the pits from fourth position. That pretty much curtails any chance of the podium now for him. By the time he gets back there, the tyres will probably be worn out, the fuel will have depleted. He'll have to go into lift and coast mode by the end of the weekend. So Alessandro Nannini has made his last pit stop. He drops to 17th place as a result. Into the pits has come Ricardo Patrese in the Brabham. He too has pitted. There is Alain Prost, third position, 40 seconds back from Senna. He's still trying to move his way further forward. But the Brabham is going relatively well at the moment. And Cristian Fittipaldi in his Modena Lamborghini now comes into the pits to leave the racing driver Modena, Stefano Modena that is, move up into 16th position. Up the top of the crest again. And it is going beautifully well. As always, the car just a joy to watch in his hands. Doesn't matter which car he's driving these days, he always looks like a genius behind the wheel. And this kind of emphatic domination is very much proof in the pudding of that. Senna continues on his way up front, having a great time of it. There is Alain Prost, the man who was not quite able to keep up with him on enough occasions last year to be a championship contender, but certainly winning Monaco proves to everybody what he can still do. As Nannini is locked in a battle with a back marker at the moment, trying to get the long way round them, just all desperately to try and put McLaren back into the points. There is Alain Prost. So far, only 3 drivers in the field have not had problems enough that prevented them from scoring points. Michael Schumacher, Alessandro Nannini, and Ricardo Patrese. Those are the 3 drivers in 1991 that have so far, only race 5, those are the only 3 drivers to have failed to score a point in one of the races. Mind you, you do have to go back to one of the drivers who retired earlier on today. trying every trick in the book in order to improve and get back into the points. There's one place out of the points at the moment. But as far as he's concerned, the miss is going to be as good as a mark. Mika Häkkinen is out. Mika Häkkinen is out of the race. For some reason, our cameras are not picking it up. But Mika Häkkinen, there he is. So that is down at the hairpin, I do believe. Mika Häkkinen, the car has come to a stop at the hairpin. And so the reigning world champion, he's out. Yep, Alboreto is passing the scene of his retirement, so that's down at the end of the long straight. Now I wonder, is that brake failure for the Brabham driver? Or is that another completely unrelated problem? We're watching Thierry Boutsen, third position at the moment. Ignore the fact that he's in third because Alain Prost still needs to pit again, I do believe. There is Nannini now into the points. So the McLaren team look like they are going to score points in all 5 races this year against all of the odds. Senna's going to work his way through the chicanes. That's certainly going to be very good news for McLaren's current team manager, Dave Goddard, who's working very closely in principle with Ron Dennis, the team at McLaren. There's Thierry Boutsen up but out of the top of the crest, skating to the right, skating to the left. Really enjoyable. There's Mr. Fittipaldi, 18th place in the modern Lamborghini. One of the cars towards the back, he moves over and lets Alessandro Nannini overtake him. So Alessandro Nannini clearly having some difficulties at this rather phenomenal point of the narrative, actually. So through comes Prost. Very solid race it is. And Prost is 46 and a half, I think. No, now 47 seconds clear of Alain Prost. Senna doing a grand job. Fittipaldi still dueling with Alessandro Nannini. This is going to cause some headaches as Senna locks up through the first chicane. Got to be careful, Ayrton. 20 laps to go. You don't want to bin it. So near in Imola, but so far. Frustration in Monaco. Could have won. But it all fell apart. And Eddie Irvine is now going to come into the pits to start the second pit stop rotation, I'm sure. As we watch Jean Alesi, who has worked his way back into the points, of course. And he has now darted up the inside of one of the colonies. So Jean Alesi in the Red Bull Tyrrell, his brand new energy drinks company. It's only been in operation about 3 years. It seems to have got viewership with it also. The Red Bull Tyrrell team, currently with Honda engines. Apparently they will be using, quote, a new supplier, end quote. Now that doesn't tell us whether that's a new supplier from their perspective, which it almost certainly will be whatever happens, or is that a Syngium from last night when the paddock between the drivers. They've already had some interesting conversations about how this season is going to play out. The drivers have felt a little bit stymied. They actually had a meeting, the drivers, last night to say that they were going to speak out a little bit more in general when things were going right. There's a car in trouble up the road from Prost. It's too close up the road to be Ayrton Senna, but it's not the Porsche Williams. Who is it? It's one of the Benettons. It's Brundle. Martin Brundle, who is in the final points-paying position. That's such a shame for Martin Brundle. I really was hoping the Benetton was going to go further in the race, and Michael Schumacher appears to have made a mistake on the Benetton's oil. So as Martin Brundle drops out of the points and out of the race, allowing Irvine and Piquet and Frentzen to overtake, it's now Martin Brundle in the Benetton out of the race. You can see the marshals there. He's craning his car off the racetrack. What a shame. But that has promoted the Ferraris of Schumacher and Mansell to 4th and 5th now, because they have worked their way past Patrese. Patrese has just been lapped by our race leader, Ayrton Senna. There's still a bit of a way to go here. 18 laps remaining for Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian and world champion of 1988. It was Prost. 19 last year was a shock. It was Mika Häkkinen, who sadly is not racing anymore. As far as I can tell, there are 15 cars still running in the Grand Prix. Oh, and that's Schumacher moving on the side and letting Mansell through. So Mansell gets through past Schumacher. Has Schumacher got a problem? Or is that team orders? Have they told him to move aside and let Nigel Mansell go through? Now that is quite significant because Michael Schumacher does not seem to me to be the kind of racing driver that would just give up the position because this early in the season. He has to be very loyal indeed to the Scuderia, to the prancing horse at Maranello. Here's Frentzen making his bid on the inside of his teammate Piquet again for 11th place. It's a fascinating duel between the two. Of course, the more these two battle with each other, the more interesting and scandalous it becomes. Yes, it's fantastic to watch and listen to the Porsche Williams as he goes around the circuit here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, named after the immortal legend who was sadly taken from us in 1982 at the Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder. And there's the move from Frentzen to get past Piquet. So Heinz-Harald Frentzen certainly giving Arrows a little bit more joy. But you do wonder then if Frentzen's able to deal with and pass Piquet so easily. Now, how much is their terrible start to the year as a course of mechanical maladies, problems and bad luck, as much as it is over the drivers? Because I would say that car, the Arrows, does look fairly leery as well, actually. It's not exactly the most serene of race car. Thierry Boutsen, third place over the line. 4 seconds back from Prost in the Brabham, as Nannini continues on his way in 9th place in the McLaren. Out of the hairpin, under the quick-fit bridge once more. Battle on. There's a yellow flag up in front. It's Nannini. It's Nannini in the McLaren. So Nannini retires from the Canadian Grand Prix. What a disappointment for the team. And I've got a sneaky suspicion that the board of directors are going to have their say, because McLaren, who are currently second in the championship, but apparently there is already dissension in the ranks at McLaren. As Prost nearly tripping over Eddie Irvine as he laps him. And Alboreto, this is for position. He's going for the inside of Patrese. Oh no, my apologies, Patrese still a little way up the road. This is a quiet job from Michele Alboreto in 7th place in the Lotus. He's still doing a fair job of it as Irvine unlaps himself from Alain Prost. Now, that might suggest a problem for Prost. In fact, he is slowing. He is slowing. Boutsen's getting by. So Boutsen passes Alain Prost up the inside line. I think Prost has got a problem. The Brabham is going slowly, and that is exactly what Frank Williams and Patrick Head and Scott Woodwis and all the team at the Porsche Williams Group wanted to see. Boutsen catching and repassing Alain Prost. Does Prost in the Brabham have a problem at this late stage? If he does, then that's going to give the podium to Ferrari and their man Nigel Mansell. That Porsche Williams is mighty quick though, so a lot of it could just come down to the speed that they're able to produce. But certainly Alain Prost is doing everything he can to keep the dreams of this race alive from his perspective. Nobody else's mind. Because obviously his teammate Mika Häkkinen is now out of the Grand Prix, as is the Italian Alessandro Nannini for the McLaren team. And neither McLaren is going to finish the Canadian Grand Prix. Gone over the top of the crest. Good run so far. Still, the race rages on. Because up front, Ayrton Senna is nearly a minute now in front of his teammate Thierry Boutsen as he comes across the line. Boutsen is looking good in second. Third is Alain Prost, who hasn't pulled off yet, but still the Porsche Williams, dogs his every turn and he's putting him under pressure. He's got through. Mansell is trying to catch up now to Alain Prost in the Brabham. So Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari through to 4th position ahead of his teammate Michael Schumacher. Ferrari's still looking relatively competitive this year. It's just that clearly this particular circuit here in Canada hasn't really favoured them on this occasion. Wonderful to just listen to these incredible machines. Senna, Boutsen, Prost, Mansell, Schumacher, Patrese. Then it is Alboreto in the Lotus, Alesi in the Tyrrell, Irvine in the Ligier. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen is looking at a point on his debut for Arrows. Now that would be a big sigh of relief for the Arrows team, because they could do with scoring a couple of points to kick Honda back out of the top 10 in the Constructors' Championship. As Honda are not going to add to their tally. currently the Honda team are currently 10th in the Constructors' Championship on 2 points. Behind them is the only other team to have scored a point this year outside the top 10 teams, and that is San Carlo Coloni, who've scored a point. Now, if the Arrows team can get a 9th place finish, or maybe even an 8th place finish, and they stay out of the doldrums, and they'll give them a few points in the championship fight to not drop out of the qualifying for the Grand Prix, and they would have to go to pre-qualifying if they don't manage to sustain it. All sorts of hints and suggestions and rumours about 1992, as there always is in the paddock. Tends to be something that comes up a lot. Apparently, the 3000 team footwork are a little bit irritated and frustrated about their failure to buy the Arrows team a couple of seasons ago. They tried to, it didn't work, but apparently the Japanese team is still very keen to get involved in Formula One. And apparently they're looking to see if there might be a potential purchase of a current Formula One team to get them on the starting grid for 1992. But there's a couple of teams that are in the same boat as that. Apparently the Roos, who have had a long-standing relationship with Lola, they want to team up once again or run their own team, one of the two. And it looks as though the Lola team, who are struggling a little bit this year, would probably welcome the additional support. There's also quarters that the great car manufacturer from the past, Bugatti, which is currently building and designing a new road-going supercar, which apparently is going to be called the EB110, they are considering, as part of that promotional push, they want to get back into Formula One again. Now that would be quite sensational if they managed to do so. Thierry Boutsen diving up the inside, gets the move on the Ligier. That is Eddie Irvine to be lapped. Still the battle rages. 12 laps remaining in the Canadian Grand Prix of 1991. Senna leads. This would be such a big victory for him and for the team, especially after pole position and almost certainly fastest lap of the race as well for the Brazilian. To get him back into championship winning contention in dominant form, as Boutsen goes with him in second place. Williams team looking very comfortable in first and second in this Grand Prix. Third place, Alain Prost. In the Brabham, Eddie Irvine storming his way up the inside of one of the modern Lamborghinis. I think that was Christian Fittipaldi actually. Could be wrong. Could be the other car belonging to Paul Tracy, the home star, who is in 13th place. And into the pits comes Senna. Senna's pitting. So either he's got a problem or he is on a 3-stop strategy. So that's his 3rd visit to the pits. Now, Senna has come back out onto the circuit again, but a 3-stop strategy was probably not in the books for Senna. Maybe he was just pushing so hard that they needed him to come into the pits again. So Senna, 11 laps from home, makes a visit to the pits, but I can tell you he has gone back out again and he is still leading. So, very dramatic at Porsche Williams. I'm not sure they were expecting another pit stop, but they certainly got one as Frentzen is about to be lapped here by the Ferrari. So no problems at all for Mansell to go by and lap the Arrows in the process. There's Boutsen. Boutsen's slowing. Thierry Boutsen in the Williams is slowing. Oh my goodness. Prost is going to go through in a second, and Thierry Boutsen is going to be out of the Canadian Grand Prix. So Thierry Boutsen, who was having such a brilliant race up to this point, was looking good for another second place. There is the confirmation. Thierry Boutsen in the Porsche Williams is out of the Canadian Grand Prix. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. They can't quite get 2 cars to the finish of a Grand Prix. They can certainly get one. They managed to get a Grand Prix victory from Thierry Boutsen back at the San Marino Grand Prix in Imola. But it was Senna in the closing stages that dropped out. And unfortunately, Thierry Boutsen will score no points here in Canada. All that hard work, and Prost is in trouble! Prost is in trouble now in the Brabham! I don't believe it. First Boutsen and now Alain Prost. And I'm afraid that's two of the big guns from the top three. Senna looks like he's had to make a pit stop for adjustments. Boutsen is out, and now it looks like Prost is out too. In second position. Dear oh dear oh dear, there is Prost in major difficulties, and I'm afraid the Brabham, just like his teammate Mika Häkkinen, is going no further. Alain Prost, 10 laps from home. There's no way he can keep that car running. So I'm afraid the Brabham is out of the Canadian Grand Prix. Neither McLaren, neither Brabham, neither Benetton will finish here in Canada. And Nigel Mansell absolutely adores this sight as Ayrton Senna bangs in the fastest lap of the race. So clearly whatever problem he had, it's been fixed in the pit stop. Oh goodness me, Nigel Mansell can barely see where he's going. Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari is about to inherit second position in the Canadian Grand Prix. This is great news for Ferrari, not just in the drivers but also in the Constructors' Championship. But it's terrible news for Alain Prost, who won the Monaco Grand Prix. He will not finish in Canada. So Alain Prost back to reality for the Brabham driver and the 3-times world champion as Nigel Mansell storms through into second position. And there is Prost finally conking out for good on the main straight. Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari is going to go by into third position. That will give him a chance to extend his lead in the Drivers' Championship. And I'm afraid it's all gone wrong for Prost and Brabham. Just as it did for Thierry Boutsen, and now it is done for Alain Prost in the Brabham as well. So, just in the dying laps of this Grand Prix, Boutsen is out and now Prost is out as well. And that puts Senna, another new fastest lap from Ayrton Senna. Absolutely determined that he is going to win this Grand Prix without any hijinks. So Senna still leads, but Mansell is now second. Schumacher's now third. Patrese in the Ligier. He's a dark horse for this championship, you know, Riccardo Patrese. Keeps banging in those points. Great news for him. So, still looking good for Patrese in the points at the moment. Earlier in the broadcast, Schumacher has scored points in every race, and so too has Patrese. But with Alessandro Nannini out of the race, he now doesn't get to keep that distinction anymore. Oh, Frentzen though, 9th position for the Arrows, don't forget, is about to become 8th position for the Arrows. So Hightower Frentzen on his debut for the Arrows team is about to put Arrows back into 10th position in the Constructors' Championship. This is a big moment for the team. With Irvine 7th and Frentzen in 8th place. Frentzen is leading 3 championship points, and for the Arrows team, this is an absolute opportunity knocking. They really need their man to come home in that position. There's only 13 cars still running the Canadian Grand Prix of 1991. Senna leads. Mansell is 50 seconds back. His teammate Michael Schumacher is 5 seconds further back from him. Then Riccardo Patrese in the Ligier. Michele Alboreto is going well in the Lotus in 5th place. Very quietly bringing home some decent points. 6th place is Alesi in the Tyrrell. More points for the team. 7th place is Eddie Irvine in the other Ligier. And they're looking pretty confident as well. 8th place for Frentzen. And that will be the Arrows team's first points of 1991 in stakes like this. And that will put them into 10th place in the Constructors' Championship, knocking Honda out of the top 10. 9th place for Piquet is going to be double points for the Arrows team then. And Modena in 10th place, in the sole remaining Lola. But we need to watch out for Paul Tracy as well. The Canadian is in 11th place for the Modena Lamborghini team. They could get their first point if anybody in the top 10 now drops out. They could get their first point. And Paul Tracy, the Canadian, is really hopeful of getting a point on his home circuit. Roberto Moreno is 12th in the Coloni. Christian Fittipaldi is 13th in the other Modena Lamborghini. There is Schumacher in the Ferrari, closing up behind Frentzen's Arrows, who is in 8th place, but Piquet in his is in 9th. It looks as though Arrows are going to score 5 points in one Grand Prix here, which is 5 more points than they have scored in the first 4 races of the season. A big sigh of relief could be coming the way of the Arrows team. Even if one of their cars comes home, it's set to be in 8th position. That'll still be enough. But certainly a massive sigh of relief if that's the way it goes. A point position is looking likely for Stefano Modena and the MasterCard Lola team. But this man, Paul Tracy, is hopeful of a point on home soil. 11th place for the Modena Lamborghini. Could they score their first championship point in the 5th race of the 1991 season? And as far as I can tell, it's the Modena Lamborghini team's first attempt to do so. Because this is the first time, I think, it's the second time they have qualified for a Grand Prix. They managed to get through in the San Marino Grand Prix. But this is the team's second Grand Prix outing. And if one car in front of them drops out, the Modena Lamborghini team will become the 12th team to score a championship point, 13 if the Arrows team does. So there's a lot of positive stories coming the way of a few of the teams here. But it all had to come as a retirement for Boutsen and a retirement for Prost. There's Michele Alboreto in the Lotus. I'm sure the team, Peter Collins and Ryan Ferris and all the people behind the scenes at Lotus will be ecstatic with a 5th place finish for Alboreto. There was talk of a lack of motivation in the Lotus team, with one of the senior teams in the grid. Michele Alboreto and Derek Warwick are not exactly a young driver lineup. That will certainly give them plenty to be positive about going into the Mexican Grand Prix in a couple of weeks' time. But there is Michael Schumacher still parading around behind Senna and Mansell, but a 3rd place finish for Schumacher is going to stretch his championship lead. Great performance it has been from the German so far in 1991. He will pull in 3rd position. That's going to give him 10 points, so that's going to put him 14 points clear of Gerhard Berger in the Drivers' Championship. But a 2nd place finish for Mansell is going to put him on 34. It's going to be just 2 points behind Berger. A win for Senna is going to put him on 27. That's going to put him ahead of Alessandro Nannini in the championship fight. Tracy is currently 4th place on looking at 8, so that's going to put him on 26. And that'll be 1 point behind Senna. So this championship fight really is cooking nicely now. But with 4 laps to go, it looks good for the Brazilian, the Indy 500 winner, the 1988 world champion and former Monaco Grand Prix winner, Ayrton Senna, looking so good at the front of the field. Here's the championship leader, Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. A very solid season in 1991, and he leads the championship. With a 3rd place finish, he will extend his lead in the championship from 4 points to 14 points. So it looks really good for the German, who has scored points in every Formula 1 Grand Prix so far this year. And in the Constructors' Championship, it's looking really good for Ferrari as well, with Mansell looking to be 2nd in front of Schumacher. Here's Nelson Piquet, 3 times world champion. Lack of motivation, lack of focus has been what people have said of him of late. But he's looking at 9th place today. That's going to be 2 points for Arrows. His teammate Frentzen is ahead of him. 3 points for the Arrows team. Looking good for the German. And that is suddenly going to move the Arrows team into what will be 10th position in the Constructors' Championship, just 1 point behind Benetton and ahead of Honda and Coloni in the Constructors' Championship race. After 4 miserable races, it finally looks as though Arrows are going to come good. Patrese gets out of the way and lets Ayrton Senna lap him. Ayrton Senna has lapped everybody except the Ferraris. What a performance from the Brazilian, despite having to make an additional pit stop. That just shows you how motivated Ayrton Senna is to win here in Canada. Even though it looked like he had some kind of electrical issue, Senna is diving his way through the field. Look at him, he's just picking them off like raisins now. This is excellent from Senna. He is the championship favourite going into 1991, but he's obviously got a lot of points to make up on Schumacher. And the way Senna is currently driving, if anybody's going to catch Schumacher in the title fight, it's going to be the Brazilian Ayrton Senna. He is on the penultimate lap. He's over a minute ahead of the Ferraris. And I'm sure everybody at Williams is praying that lightning is not going to strike twice. They may have lost Boutsen, but they do not want to lose Senna as well. This is an absolutely sensational run. Oh, and Piquet chopping across there on the Ligier of Riccardo Patrese. So a really sensational run for the contenders. Here comes Schumacher out of the final turn. and onto the home straight to begin lap 68 for him. But looking a few seconds down the road, you'll find Senna. We know how good Ayrton Senna is as a driver. We know how strong he is. You've only got to look back to his 1988 and 89 seasons with McLaren. Last year was a bit of a hiccup with the McLaren team. He sensed that there was trouble on the horizon and jumped ship for the 91 season as he goes into the last lap here in Canada. But this is where we were in San Marino, don't forget, so it's not done until Senna crosses the line. But this is surely going to be the race, if he carries on like this, where Ayrton Senna gets himself into the championship fight. He seems completely rejuvenated. He was downcast, he was downtrodden after Monaco. He knew that was a race he could have and probably should have won. But he decided to accept the deal from Porsche North America to get into the Indy 500. He thought, why not? Let's give it a go and see what happens. And he won. And ever since then, Senna has been invincible. Out of the hairpin, down the straight, he will follow in the wheel tracks of Christian Fittipaldi as he continues to charge forward. Well, what an incredible result this is going to be for Ayrton Senna and the Williams team. Surely now, nothing can stop them as they come into the final chicane. Left, right, and this time, Ayrton Senna will not be denied. He wins the 1991 Canadian Grand Prix, fresh off the back of winning the Indy 500. North America has been kind to Ayrton Senna this time. Mansell is over a minute back in the Ferrari. But Tracy comes through. The Ferraris will be on the podium. It doesn't matter which order they come through now. But the Ferraris will be second and third. Mansell in second and Schumacher in third. But Tracy is fourth ahead of Alboreto, Alesi, Irvine, the two Arrows cars of Frentzen and Piquet. 5 points scored by Arrows. They are back in the top 10 again. Honda will be frustrated. But Ayrton Senna has done it. Ayrton Senna da Silva wins the Canadian Grand Prix. And that is game on for the championship fight as far as we're concerned. Even with a third pit stop for what we are told was a suspected electrical issue, Senna was far enough in front, calm enough and composed to come home. And there is Mansell and Schumacher coming home on the podium for Ferrari. Everybody's happy. Senna wins, and Ferrari, which still has a huge, passionate Tifosi fan base here in Canada, are second and third. What a fantastic end to the Canadian Grand Prix. Ayrton Senna dominates here in Montreal. Mansell second, Schumacher in third. Fourth place for Riccardo Patrese, then Michele Alboreto in the Lotus, Alesi in the Tyrrell, Irvine in the Ligier. The two Arrows cars come home in the points, with Piquet behind Frentzen. Modena is 10th. Tracy, Moreno and Fittipaldi are the final finishers. Nobody else is classified. And a very tough race it was. We lost both the Brabhams. We lost both the Benettons. We lost both the McLarens as well. A very tough race indeed. And Thierry Boutsen could easily have been second in that one as well. He too fell by the wayside with a broken gearbox. Fastest lap of the race? Who else? Ayrton Senna. Look at that. A second and a half faster than anybody else in the Grand Prix. Well, this day has been all about one man and one man alone. Ayrton Senna from Brazil has absolutely swept up and cleaned up here in Canada. An absolutely terrific performance. Next time out, we get to do it all again for the Mexican Grand Prix in Mexico City. We hope you've enjoyed this phenomenal Grand Prix. Williams are back, Ferrari are strong, and who knows what will happen next time. I'm Jake Sanson. Bye for now.